Hey, Bill,
People here, a bunch of people here want to talk, I guess.
just talk to council when they say it's.
Do I need to call the sheriff to have you evicted?
No, I'm just, what
Okay.
is it all right?
You're one of us, man.
We had a sign wrong over there. County council. The sign.
Looking for farm equipment? There's a big auction.
That's county council.
There's someplace. Yeah?
Changed.
What is it?
Oh,
Good to know.
Ann Peterson.
Oh, I like Deanna. Lawyer. Okay, since I think everybody's here.
Cross-dresser?
And his nameplate. I don't know where it went.
Good morning and welcome to July 8th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. We'll start with roll call, please.
When the items on the agenda. Roll call. McElroy.
Here.
Millies.
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
Diaz.
Here.
Whitlatch.
Here.
Pearson.
Here.
Aguilar.
Here.
Okay, please stand and join me in our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, this is the public comment time. Members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. If you wish to participate in today's public comment via telephone, please call 559-624-7013. You'll be connected to the boardroom to address the Planning Commission in the same manner as if you were here in person. Please state your name and address for the record in order to be heard by everyone in the room. Your statements will go out live on the audio stream and will be included in the audio recording of the meeting. This meeting can be viewed at the Planning Commission Meetings Tulare County main page website. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Planning Commission at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to comment at the time the item comes up for Planning Commission consideration. So that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing Planning Commission may be limited at the discretion of the chair in order to be considered for Planning Commission testimony. Public hearing items must be given at the time of the public hearing. As courtesy to those in attendance, please turn off and place in alert mode or off your cell phones in compliance with the American Disability Act. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Resource Management Agency at 624-700. So does anyone like to address the Planning Commission on any item not appearing on our agenda? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. I suppose we didn't have a phone call either, did we?
No, we have no.
Okay. Should I wait? Okay. So I'll ask for my fellow commissioners for approval of the minutes for June 22nd. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes for June 22nd, 2020.
Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Roll call. I guess we push the buttons, okay? So who seconded? Push the second, okay.
I made the motion.
Okay. Can't see, but I guess it was approved. Is that correct, Velma?
We're missing Mr. Pearson's vote.
Did I get it? Oh,
Mr. Pearson, your vote, please.
I did.
You motioned, but then you have to vote.
Just like Chicago, vote often. Okay, motion seems to have been carried. We're going to move on to parcel map hearings. Actions on all parcel maps in this section of the agenda will be heard in one public hearing. Unless anyone wishes to discuss any one of these items, that it be pulled for a separate hearing. No staff presentation will be given on any item unless requested. In any case, there will be a separate vote on these items. To members of the public, if you wish to participate in today's public hearing, please call us via telephone 559-624-7013, and you'll be connected to the boardroom to address the Planning Commission the same manner as if you were here. If you choose not to call in, you may also participate by submitting an email on this item being heard. Emails should include the sender's name and address for the record. Emails should include the following agenda item number. In this case, it is 4A. Emails should include sender's address. Okay, we got that. Emails should include the subject which I just said, and can be sent to the clerk of the Planning Commission at all one word and all lowercase. It's planningcommission@co.tulare.ca.us. Every effort will be made to read your comments on records, but some comments may not be read due to time limitations. Comments received after the public hearing has closed will be made part of the record. If received before the end of the meeting, that concludes instructions by today's planning hearing. So I'd like to open up item 4A, and that's a tentative parcel map, PPM 20015 Van Beek Lane Engineering Inc., categorical exemption, a tentative map PPM 20-015 to divide 317.7 acres into two parcels. Parcel 1 is 315.75 acres. Parcel 2 is 2.03 in an AE zone. Site is located northwest corner, Avenue 160, Road 152, west of Woodville. And there is no staff presentation, so, and do I open the public hearing? I should know. I was opening the public hearing, yes. Thanks. And so it is open, and the public would like to comment. They are welcome to come forward to comment at this time. Close the public comment section and look for a motion for or against or comments from my fellow planning commissioners. Are we here?
We're here.
We're here. No comment.
So someone will make a motion then one motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve a categorical exemption consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the state CEQA guidelines pursuant to Title 14, California Code Regulations, Section 15303, Class 3, pertaining to new construction or conversion of small structures, and conditionally approved tentative parcel map number PPM 20-015 with a waiver for final map.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Push the button.
I don't see it. Other
Well, I guess
it beat me to it.
beat you to it. It's a quick machine. Okay, vote. Motion carried. Moving on to item 5A. This is a public hearing to members of the public who wish to participate in okay, here we go. We're going to go to, before we open up 5A, I have to read this public hearing to members of the public. If you wish to participate in today's public hearing via phone, please call 559-624-7013. You'll be connected to the boardroom to address Planning Commission the same manner as if you were here in person. Please state your name and address for the record in order to be heard by everyone in the room. Your statements will go out on the live audio stream, will be included in the audio recording of the meeting. The timer will be set to 3 minutes, so please adhere to the time limit. If you choose not to call in, you may participate by submitting an email as this item is being heard. And email should be, include the sender's name and address for the record. Emails should include the following. This is be 5A and can be sent to the clerk of the Planning Commission at, one word, all lowercase, Planning Commission at co.tulare.ca.us. Every effort will be made to read your comment into the record, but some comments may not be read due to time limitations. Comments received after the public hearing has closed will be made part of the record if received before the end of the meeting. That concludes the instructions for today's public hearing. So 5A reads the following. It's a general plan, number GPA 20-09, Tulare County Board of Supervisors General Plan Amendment. GPA 2009 proposed to amend 2017 Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and a 2017 Dairy and Feedlot Climate Action Plan. Regulations, new dairies and dairy expansions located in unincorporated areas of Tulare County. So we'll go to our staff recommendation by, good morning.
Good morning, Sandy Roper, Planner 4 with the Tulare County Resource Management Agency.
You'll need to open up your PowerPoint. It's on the corner, right there, yes.
We got it, Sandy.
Okay, Chairman Whitlatch and members of the commission, right now on the screen is the General Plan Amendment number 20-009. The applicant is the County of Tulare. The General Plan Amendment 20-009 amends the 2017 Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and the 2017 Dairy and Feedlot Climate Action Plan regarding new dairies and dairy expansions located in the unincorporated areas of Tulare County. Again, the applicant is the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. The General Plan Amendment would apply to the unincorporated area of the counties. And the public hearing notice for this meeting was published on June 24th, 2020 in the Sun Gazette. On August 2nd of 2019, a stipulated settlement was made and became effective to resolve case number 272380. The parties included the Sierra Club, the Association of Irritated Residents, and the Center for Biological Diversity, and the County of Tulare. The parties to the stipulated settlement agreed that the county shall consider adoption of the following. The first bullet would be a consideration of an amendment to the 2017 ACFP to allow any dairy to use the 2017 ACFP streamlining provisions for expansions, and this is in policy 2.5-3 of the 2017 ACFP. And it would be for no more than once every 5 years for the streamlining provisions. The second bullet would be amendments to the 2017 ACFP and 2017 dairy cap to reduce the 2017 ACFP streamlining screening level for dairy expansions listed in the conformist checklist criteria set forth in Appendix A to the 2017 ACFP from 25,000 metric tons of CO2e per year to 15,000 metric tons of CO2e per year. The third bullet, an amendment to the 2017 dairy cap to move certain greenhouse gas emissions reduction strategies from Category B to Category A, as those categories were established in the 2017 dairy cap for environmental review purposes under CEQA. The general plan amendment is not expected to create any new impacts and is not expected to exacerbate any previously identified impacts. Instead, it's anticipated that the project would reduce impacts since, one, dairies would be limited to no more than one streamlining screening level, dairy level expansion every 5 years, compared to under the existing ACFP and dairy cap, there's no limit on how often dairies could utilize streamlining screening level dairy expansions. Two, only dairy expansions that generate less than 15,000 metric tons per year of net greenhouse gas emissions would qualify for streamlining screening level dairy expansion, while under the 2017 ACFP and 2017 dairy cap, dairy expansions that generate less than 25,000 metric tons of net greenhouse gas emissions would qualify for streamlining screening level dairy expansion. Three, some greenhouse gas emission reduction strategies would simply move from category B to category A in the dairy cap. The general plan amendment under Government Code Section 65352 requires that before a legislative body takes action to substantially amend a general plan, the planning agency must refer the proposed action to 9 categories of government entities. The referral entities have 45 days to comment. The county referred the proposed amendment to the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap to those entities on April 20th of 2020, and the 45-day period expired on June 4th, 2020. No comments were received from any of those government entities. Next, concerning tribal consultation and SB 18 and AB 52, the California Government Code Section 65352.3 requires public agencies to conduct consultations with Native American tribes that are on the contact list maintained by the Native American Heritage Commission prior to the adoption or any amendment of the county's general plan. Pursuant to that section, consultation notification letters were sent to 13 Native American contacts on February 21st of 2020, notifying them of their right to request consultation within 90 days from the date which they are conducted. No request for consultation have been received. The Tulare County Native American contact list is concluded in attachment 6 of the agenda item. Concerning correspondence received, the RMA received comments from Tulare County Environmental Health Services. Let me restate that. The county received a response from the Tulare County Environmental Health Services, Caltrans, and City of Porterville, and each of those stated that they did not have any comments. Also, the Center for Biological Diversity responded to the consultation notice and requested that the county provide a detailed update to the Board of Supervisors and public regarding the implementation of other substantive requirements of the settlement agreement. And this would be generally regarding the status of the county's implementation of the Dairy and Feedlot Climate Action Plan and the Animal Confinement Facilities Plan. The Center for Biological Diversity's letter also stated that the letter serves as a right to cure notice as outlined in Section 6B of the settlement. A detailed update will be provided to the board and the public when the general plan amendment is considered by the board. And at this point, it's scheduled tentatively to go before the board on July 24th July 21st. Concerning the comments from the Center for Biological Diversity, the first comment was in relation to providing an annual report due May 1st, 2020, including a public meeting on the annual report. The response and the status of the annual report. Due to the current COVID-19 health emergency, there were initial delays in securing a scope and getting an agreement in place with the county's air quality consultant. However, an administrative draft of the annual report that covers the dairy greenhouse gas emissions for 2018 is complete and under review. The 2020 annual report will be finalized and presented to the board on July 21st, 2020. The second bullet concerning hiring at least one full-time equivalent person for fiscal years 2019 through 2024, dedicated to monitoring and enforcing the animal confinement facilities plans. The county's response and status for this item. This item was completed when a full-time equivalent person was hired and started work for the Resource Management Agency on December 9th of 2019, and the person that was hired was me. The third bullet concerning developing and maintaining a list of ACFPs. The ACFP list was completed on May 28th of 2020, and maintaining the list is ongoing. The next bullet concerning tracking compliance of existing dairies with ACFP, greenhouse gas reduction measures, mitigation measures, and any permit conditions required by the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District and/or the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board by their regulations specified in permits to operate and waste discharge requirements that are applicable to greenhouse gas reductions. The RMA's response and the status of this item. A completed annual compliance report form is required to be submitted for every dairy and feedlot located within Tulare County. The RMA sends each facility an annual compliance report form in July and requires the completed forms submitted by the end of September. The annual compliance report contains a section to provide information about the emission reduction strategies implemented at the facility. That information is provided to the air quality consultant for use in preparing the annual report of total dairy greenhouse gas emissions for that year. Site inspections of 15% of dairy facilities will occur each year to track mitigation measures and permit conditions required by the Air District and the Regional Valley, the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. And this would be in relation to waste discharge requirements that are applicable to greenhouse gas reductions. The next bullet concerning tracking estimated greenhouse gas reductions. The county's response and the status would be that the RMA has entered into an agreement with an air quality consultant who is currently preparing the 2019 annual report of total dairy greenhouse gas emissions for 2018. This task is ongoing, and the air quality consultant will continue preparing annual reports of total dairy greenhouse gas emissions through 2024. The next bullet concerning forwarding noncompliance with the ACFP to the Air District and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. The county's response and the status of this would be that any site inspection that finds the dairy to be non-compliant with mitigation measures and/or permit conditions required by the Air District's permit to operate and/or the Regional Water Quality Control Board's waste discharge requirements that are applicable to greenhouse gas reductions will result in the county forwarding non-compliance with the ACFP to the Air District and/or the Regional Water Quality Control Board is applicable. The next bullet concerning initiating code enforcement actions for dairies out of compliance with the ACFP, the county's response and the status for this item, failure of dairies to submit annual compliance reports, and site inspections that find dairies to be out of compliance with mitigation measures or any permit conditions required by the Air District or Regional Water Quality Control Board by their regulations specified in permits to operate and/or waste discharge requirements respectively that are applicable to greenhouse gas reduction will result in the initiation of code enforcement actions for those dairies. The next bullet concerning performing site inspections of at least 15% of dairies every fiscal year. The county's response and the status. The RMA will be conducting site inspections on 15% of the dairies in Tulare County annually, resulting in 45 out of 296 operating dairies. And this would be on a rolling basis, so the same dairies would not be inspected each year. The next bullet concerning reporting all enforcement and inspection actions, as well as any reports of noncompliance with applicable county permits, rules, and regulations from the prior year to the county board as part of annual interim and final reports. The county's response and the status of this item is that all enforcement and inspection actions, as well as any reports of noncompliance with applicable county permits, rules, and regulations from the prior year will be reported to the board as part of the annual interim and final reports. Concerning the next bullet, developing and updating of an ACFP dairy and feedlot climate action plan implementation web page to publicly post relevant information, including annual reporting and updates to the ACFP and the dairy cap. County's response and the status of this item is that the website is complete and contains the project review consultation notice for General Plan Amendment 20-009, the 2017 ACFP plan, the 2017 dairy cap, environmental documents for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap, and resources for state grants and environmental program links. The website can be accessed at the following link, and that would be https://tulare.ca.gov/rma/index.cfm/permits/dairy/. Improvements are continuously made to the website, and future updates will include annual, interim, and final reports, as well as the ACFP and dairy cap amendments. Concerning the next bullet, establishing a dairy mitigation education program by March 1st, 2020 that includes the following: identifying and promoting methods to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from dairy and livestock operations in the county, outreach to dairy industry, including co-sponsoring events regarding ACFP compliance and greenhouse gas emissions reductions, and conduct 2 notice training meetings for dairies on annual compliance report requirements. The county's response and the status for this item: the dairy mitigation education program was completed in late February of 2020. There will be updates to the program on an ongoing basis. The program included outreach at the Dairy Sustainability Conference, which was postponed until November 2020 by the COVID-19 crisis. RMA staff also scheduled local training for June and July of 2020 prior to sending out the annual compliance reporting form to dairies and feedlots. Unfortunately, these events are delayed by COVID-19. However, staff continues outreach by meeting with individual dairy owners, consultants, and agents to assist in filling out forms and documentation and will proceed with larger events once past the COVID-19 restrictions. A letter dated June 29, 2020 was sent to the Center for Biological Diversity responding to their June 4th letter commenting on General Plan Amendment 20-009. The June 29, 2020 response letter is in attachment number 10 of your agenda packet. The environmental summary is allowed under CEQA guidelines section 15164. The county, as the lead agency, has prepared an addendum to the 2017 final environmental impact report for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap, which reflects the county's independent judgment pursuant to CEQA guidelines 15164C. The addendum to the 2017 final EIR for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap does not need to be circulated for public review. Rather, it may be included or attached to the final EIR. The county's general plan amendment policy provides that the board shall, among other considerations, give consideration as to the public need or necessity of the amendment and whether the proposed amendment would further the goals, objectives, policies of the general plan and not obstruct their attainment. This would be under policies and procedures 391. The proposed project would amend and update the Tulare County General Plan, Chapter 12. The project is consistent with and implements the following applicable Tulare County General Plan policies. Under Planning Framework, PF 1.2, intergovernmental coordination, the county shall work with federal, state, and regional agencies, local districts, utility providers, Native American tribes, and the military to ensure that the county and the public are involved as appropriate throughout any planning processes and that the lead agency and public input is requested. Under agriculture, Ag 1.1, primary land use, the county shall maintain agriculture as the primary land use in the valley region of the county, not only in recognition of the economic importance of agriculture, but also in terms of agricultural's real contribution to the conservation of open space and natural resources. Ag 1.2, coordination, the county shall coordinate its agricultural policies and programs with state and federal regulations to preserve agricultural lands. Ag 2.11, energy production, the county shall encourage and support the development of new agricultural-related industries featuring alternative energy utilization of agricultural waste and solar or wind farms. Land use, LU 1.6, permitting procedures and regulations. County shall continue to ensure that its permitting procedures and regulations are consistent and efficient. LU 2.1, agricultural lands, the county shall maintain agriculturally designated areas for agricultural use and by directing urban development away from valuable agricultural lands to cities, unincorporated communities, hamlets, and planned community areas where public facilities and infrastructure are available. And environmental resource management, ERM 4.6, renewable energy, the county shall support efforts when appropriate cited for the development and use of alternative energy resources, including renewable energy such as wind, solar, biofuels, and coal generation. And these are items that dairies are implementing to make their operations more efficient and provide for their energy needs. The request is that the Planning Commission is recommended to hold a public hearing today. There are two motions that are proposed. The first one would be to recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed addendum to the 2017 final environmental impact report prepared for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap. And the second motion would be to recommend that the board approve General Plan Amendment number 20-009 for the proposed amendment to the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap. This concludes the staff report unless there are any questions.
So I'll ask my fellow commissioners, would you like to ask any questions before I open the public comment? Otherwise, you'll have a chance to comment at the end.
Mr. Chair, I have one question for Sandy. Let me see, what's it called? The 15,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas limitation? How many animal units does that represent? Do you know?
No, I do not know.
Does anybody else, anyone else on the staff know?
He has an answer.
Well, Jason's coming up. Have we banned Hector from the meeting? He has to sit in the back of the room now?
Sandy, back on page 15.
Good morning, Commission.
Let
Nice
him
to see
answer
you.
the question first.
Well, he's trying to help, Your Honor.
I'm Jason Garcia
Go ahead.
Lebu. I'm the Planning and Permit Manager for Tulare County RMA. In regards to this, it really depends on the specific facility with the type of animal as to what would equal that amount of metric tons. Specifically, when we were looking at this, we were looking at average size dairy facilities, and it was approximately 1,900 animals was what that would be the equivalent to. But it depends on the type of animal, whether it's a milking cow, a heifer, or kind of the individual breakdown on a site-specific basis. But that kind of at least gives you context.
So on that, are you done with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this proposal, I mean, is quite a reduction, but does it look like the existing dairies are at that limit now, or are they going to have to cut back?
This is specifically referencing the expansion. So
Wayne Millie's had a question.
Maybe,
Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Washam, RMA Associate Director. Just to kind of summarize what this whole thing is, the confined animal plan is, what the adjustments here that are being made are for expansion, future expansions, streamlining the CEQA process. So that limitation from the 25 metric tons down to the 15, we were streamlining up to 25 tons. So the threshold is a little lower. They have to do more robust environmental review if it's above 15 for expansion net gain. So that's what this is about. The detailed letter that Sandy went through was basically every item in the settlement, just kind of giving an update of where we are. There's a number of activities that the county has committed to doing, including hiring. Sandy was the first one there. But as far as inspections, as far as outreach to the industry, and it's basically about education on mitigation measures that can be done to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So basically on all of those, we're right in line. There's a couple that have been delayed because of the COVID, but other than that, we're right in line with implementing the settlement efficiently. So if there's any detailed special questions you have, I'll let them get the details. But overall, that's what this is. It's about for streamlining CEQA for expansions of dairies.
Right. So,
Through the chair, Mike, they're not on their own. I mean, we have offsets as far as digesters to help get down that lower.
Right,
limit.
right. It's the net gain. If there's the part of this where you're going from category B to category A, those are all mitigation measures. And so when you're now analyzing what project of an expansion or to be able to make use of the checklist and do the streamlined processing, if they use, if they're planning to have a digester there, then they take credit for that. That's going to reduce the impact of that 15,000 to 25,000 ton. So that's really what this is about, streamlining CEQA and really educating the industry and promoting the mitigations that are out there to help reduce greenhouse gases.
so Mike, we really don't have a big choice because this is the settlement.
This is the settlement, so yes, you can say, yeah, I would inquire, but this is what's been agreed upon, And this is what, as far as the amendments go, that's what's going to be going forward, because that's what the settlement says.
Wayne, you still have a
Yeah,
question?
well, yeah, another one. So this was launched by the Sierra Club?
It was Sierra Club as well as,
Who is the Center who is the Center for Biological Diversity? Who's that?
that's their group. They're based out of the Bay Area, I think. So it was a group, and there was about three, Sandy named the three plaintiffs in it. They combined, we worked through and collaborated and found an agreeable settlement, which is what we've got today before you.
Okay, the other comment, Sandy, on page 15, just, it's a word smithing thing. The word cited is S-I-T-E-D, it should be C-I-T-E-D.
I had a question too. Are we getting requests for expansions of dairies? It seems like we should be going the other way.
Through the chair, go ahead, Sandy.
I just got to page 15. Were you talking about one of the paragraphs under A, the summary of the,
Page 15, can you back up to that?
are you talking about the packet or the,
The report that you give, your presentation.
I'm sorry, the slide that has 15 on it.
Site, meaning the
Yeah.
site where it
Energy,
is
the
for
county
a
shall support
citation.
efforts when appropriately
common typo.
cited as C-I-T-E-D.
SIT for the location.
I don't know if that makes a difference in terms of.
That's not cited as far as text, that's cited as far as locating the renewable
Cite
energy.
is a location.
Right, and that's proper.
Cited is when you cite something,
SI versus
you're
CI.
claiming something.
Opine on this?
yeah, the language that's in the
Right, counsel?
policy is correct, is spelled S-I-T-E-D, which would, as Aaron was saying, refer to, where a dairy is proposed to be located, compared to citing something like a policy in the general plan, which would be CITE.
The S-I-T-E-D
Well,
is correct.
Through the chair,
We're
I'd like,
talking about a location,
through the
correct?
chair, I'd like to answer Mr. Elliott's
Okay,
question.
sure.
No, right now, we are not expanding any dairies, it's our intention to put a process in place. But as Mr. Washam and Jason have consistently said, as far as the industry goes, and I think Mike might have some good answers on this one as well, it's not the intent, and nor is the industry really growing. So, but we do want to answer this one once and for all.
I would just say that as far as this wording here, that's straight out of the general plan as it exists, so we're really not looking to do that. As far as the demand, when this whole process started, when we started developing the confined animal plan in the first place, there was a pent-up demand for dairy expansions and new dairies being created. This is going back a decade or so. By the time we got to the resolution of this, I believe there was like 85 permits at one time back more than a decade ago. Now those people aren't moving forward. So the point is, we've seen a reduction in the number of dairies that we have in the county. So this is kind of, as far as new dairies go, this is kind of a moot point. There's, if there are expansions, this will help streamline expansions and that as we go forward. But there is not a pent-up demand for new dairies.
So it's kind of consolidation here, and we're going to be ready for when this happens. Okay.
Do these regulations and agreements also flow across to the other states, or is this unique to California? Kinds of settlements,
Well,
do we know?
settlement is unique to Tulare County and the Animal Confinement Facilities Plan and the dairy cap. So it wouldn't be applicable in other areas of California or in other states.
It's
just
bordered
Tulare
to
County.
our area, correct?
Yes.
But do they have similar type of settlements with the Sierra Club in other areas, states?
I couldn't speak concerning other jurisdictions, concerning, litigation that they may or may not have had. I don't have any knowledge of it. I don't know if Aaron or Jason would.
My guess is it's unique, very unique to California.
Let's move along and let me open the public comment, because we'll all have a chance to comment after the public comment.
Just a comment, that's all.
So, at this time, I'm opening the public comment. Members of the public are invited to come speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to comment on this 5A? And if there's anyone listening out in cyberspace that would like to call in to 559-624-7013, or you can email us at lowercase planningcommission@co.tulare.ca.us, and we'll take a minute break to do that. So is there anyone like to come forward and make a public comment at this time? Okay, we'll give 60 seconds for someone to call in, starting now. Or you can email us at planningcommission@co.tulare.ca.us. There's no one waiting at this time either?
At this time, no.
Okay. Okay, hearing none, I will close the public comment and move on to the staff recommendation or any further comments by my fellow commissioners. Is there anyone like to make a further comment? Otherwise, we need to, I guess, Sandy, staff's recommendation, which says right here, but
The staff's recommendation would be in two motions. The first one, recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed addendum to the 2017 Final Environmental Impact Report, State Clearinghouse Number 2011111078, prepared for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap. And the second motion would be to recommend that the board approve General Plan Amendment Number 20-009 for the proposed amendment to the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap.
okay, I'm looking for a motion from my fellow commissioners to the first action item. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed addendum to the 2017 Final Environmental Impact Report, SCH number 2011111078. Hope I got enough ones in there. Prepared for the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap.
So we have a first and a second. Roll call, go ahead and vote. Motion carried. So I'm looking for a second motion.
I'll make that motion to approve, to recommend to the board to approve General Plan Amendment Number GPA 20-009 for the proposed amendment to the 2017 ACFP and the 2017 dairy cap.
Have a second, please?
I'll second.
You got to push the button, John, first. Go ahead, okay, vote. Motion carried. Okay. We move along to item 6A. These are continued public hearings. Once again, the public is welcome to call in and comment on this at 559-624-7013. Or if you choose not to call in, you may submit an email at one word, all lowercase, planningcommission@co.tulare.ca.us. So 6A, and this is a tentative parcel map that was continued from our last meeting, TSM 2002 SME Homes, categorically exemption, tentative subdivision map, TSM 2002, final map is required to subdivide 10.4 acres into 8 parcels that range in size from 49,155 to 52,776 square feet, located in a rural residential area, zone RA 43. The site is located approximately 634 feet north of Linda Vista Avenue and approximately 700 feet east of Dillon Avenue, north of City of Porterville. And this is continued from June 24th. And we have Sandy Roper again.
Before you speak, Sandy.
Back.
Yes, before Sandy speaks, I just wanted to say, unfortunately, last time we met on this item, I think there was a lot of questions that were raised, and so we've brought a whole plethora of staff here to ask and answer all the questions that have been raised. And just to make sure that everybody is present for this presentation, Sandy will go back through most of the presentation again. At this time, though, we did, like I suggested last time, there's statutory elements that have to be addressed for the denial of a project. Sandy will go through as to why staff could not make those findings necessarily. So we'll go through each one of those in detail. But again, at the end of this presentation, we'll have members of the fire department, public works, and Sandy himself to answer some of the more expertise-related questions that may have been raised at our last meeting. So go ahead, Sandy.
Chairman Whitlatch, members of the commission, again, Sandy Roper with the Resource Management Agency. The application would be tentative subdivision map number 20-002. The applicant is SME Homes Incorporated, and their agent is Forrester Weber and Associates LLC. This item was continued from your July 8th Planning Commission meeting. Continued from the June 24th Planning Commission meeting. On June 24th, the Commission continued this item and requested that staff research the findings required by the Subdivision Map Act for denial of a map. And just a brief overview, the application, again, it proposes to subdivide 10.04 acres into 8 parcels that range in size from 49,155 to 52,776 square feet in a rural residential zone district with a 43,000 square foot minimum. This would be the RA 43 zone. Again, the agent's Forrester Weber and Associates. The project site is located approximately 634 feet north of Linda Vista Avenue and approximately 700 feet east of Dillon Court, north of the City of Porterville. An exception has been requested from the requirement to install curbs and gutters. There's also been a request for an exception concerning exceeding the 660-foot maximum length of a cul-de-sac in a non-mountainous area, and also a final map is required. At the last meeting, we didn't have a current aerial image. We were able to find one on Google Earth, and as you can see, it does show the existence of the private road that extends into the actual project site with an existing paved cul-de-sac. And as part of the project, this private road would be extended to the north, and there would be a cul-de-sac at the north end providing access to all of the lots that are proposed. There's not any possibility for this private road to be extended to the north to connect to anything else, because Caltrans is not going to allow it to connect to the state highway. Concerning the requirements of the Subdivision Map Act, Section 66474, it states that a legislative body of a city or county shall deny approval of a tentative map or a parcel map for which a tentative map was not required if it makes any of the following findings. And the first finding would be A, that the proposed map is not consistent with the applicable general and specific plans as specified in Section 65451. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the proposed map is consistent with the applicable general and specific plans as specified in 65451. PF 4.19 of the Tulare County General Plan states that new development in a city's urban area boundary would be subject to adopted plan lines and setback standards. Adopted facility plans and legally adopted general plans will be considered during the development review process. The subject site is located within the Porterville urban area boundaries, and figure ES5 of the Porterville Area Community Plan lists the land use designation as very low density residential. The proposed project is for a rural residential subdivision within the rural residential 43,000 square foot minimum, or the RA 43 zone, which is consistent with the Porterville Area Community Plan. It should be noted that annexation into the city of Porterville is not feasible or possible since the project site is not contiguous with the city's boundary. The project site is located approximately 650 feet from the city's nearest boundary. In addition, annexation would be inconsistent with PF 4.7 of the Tulare County General Plan because it would create an island of city territory surrounded by county territory. The proposed project would also assist the county in obtaining additional housing, which would help to achieve the goals of the housing element. Also, the Governor of California signed Executive Order N-06-19 on January 15th of 2019, which stated that restrictive zoning and land use policies at the local level are a major cause of the shortfall between California's housing needs and the available supply of housing. It also stated that when communities do not build their fair share of housing, the surrounding region must absorb new residents who, as a consequence of the lack of access to affordable housing, suffer from higher rents and longer commutes. The second finding would be that the design or improvement of the proposed subdivision is not consistent with the applicable general and specific plans. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the design or improvement plans of the proposed subdivision is consistent with the applicable general and specific plans. Both the fire department and the public works have reviewed the proposed project, and both have required conditions of approval that would make the design or improvement plans of the proposed subdivision consistent with the applicable general and specific plans. Public Works conditions of approval require an access easement serving parcels 4, 5, 6, and 7 be shown on the final map. The fire department conditions of approval require, one, that the applicant provide the fire department with a 20-foot width all-weather access in accordance with 2019 California Fire Code Appendix D and Tulare County regulations. Their second condition was that any new commercial constructed in the future would have to meet the 2019 or newer California Fire Code Appendix B requirements for fire flow, and 3, that condition would require that they comply with Appendix C, 2019 CFC for fire hydrant location and distribution. The third finding is that the site is not physically suitable for the type of development. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the site is physically suitable for the type of development, because it's very similar to an existing rural residential subdivision that is adjacent on the west side of the project site. It should be noted that a precedent has been set for approving cul-de-sacs that exceed the maximum length of 660 feet. For example, the adjacent subdivision to the west of the project site, it only has one way in and out of the subdivision on Dillon Court, utilizing an existing cul-de-sac that exceeds the 660-foot maximum length of a cul-de-sac in non-mountainous areas. And earlier in the presentation, there was an aerial image that showed both of those. Also recommending denial of the application to the board would go against the precedent that has already been set and would potentially deny the applicant of the ability to complete a development that is very similar to an existing development that is immediately adjacent and on the west side of the project site, as well as numerous other rural residential subdivisions in the unincorporated area of Tulare County that have cul-de-sacs that exceed the 660-foot maximum length. The fourth finding would be that the site is not physically suitable for the proposed density of development. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the site is physically suitable for the proposed density of development. The subject site is located within the Porterville area boundaries, and figure ES5 of the Porterville Area Community Plan lists the land use designation as very low density residential. The proposed project is for a rural residential subdivision within the rural residential 43,000 square foot minimum zone, which is consistent with the Porterville Area Community Plan. The next finding would be that the design of the subdivision or the proposed improvements are likely to cause substantial environmental damage or substantially and avoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitat. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the design of the subdivision or the proposed improvements are not likely to cause substantial environmental damage or substantially and avoidably injure fish or wildlife or their habitat. This project will not have a significant effect on the environment and has been determined to be categorically exempt, consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act and the state CEQA guidelines, pursuant to Section 15303, Class 3, pertaining to new construction or conversion of small structures. The use of Section 15303 is applicable and appropriate because upon project approval, only one by right residential structure would be allowed on the newly created parcels without further review. As such, the use of Section 15303 is applicable and appropriate. The project will not result in significant impacts and will not require additional public services. The next finding would be that the design of the subdivision or type of improvements is likely to cause serious public health problems. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the design of the subdivision or the type of improvements is not likely to cause serious public health problems. The proposed project would not create any more impacts than all of the other surrounding rural residential subdivisions. And finding G, that the design of the subdivision or the type of improvements will conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through or use of property within the proposed subdivision. In this connection, the governing body may approve a map if it finds that alternative easements for access or use will be provided, and that these will be substantially equivalent to or to ones previously acquired by the public. This subsection shall only apply to easement of record or to easements established by judgment of a court of competent jurisdiction, and no authority is hereby granted to a legislative body to determine that the public at large has acquired easements for access through or use of property within the proposed subdivision. Staff recommends that this finding cannot be made because the design of the subdivision or the type of improvements will not conflict with easements acquired by the public at large for access through or use of the property within the proposed subdivision. Instead, the proposed project would include extending the existing private road to the north in order to provide access to all of the lots that are proposed as part of the subdivision.
Sandy, before you get to the recommendation, we do have other staff here I'd like to call up as part of our presentation at this time. And that way we can go through our questions and answers more rapidly. I'd like to call the fire department up first, the person who reviewed it, and the chief who is responsible for the field investigations.
Good morning, Chairman Whitlatch and members of the commission. Pete Marquez, Division Chief, Tulare County Fire Department. I have with me Inspector Gilbert Portillo, who provided the conditions. And if you have any questions regarding that, we'd be happy to answer them. But the conditions that were discussed earlier, we're okay with those.
So my fellow commissioners would like to ask the fire department any questions. Now is your time.
Just a statement, I guess. I see that the fire department is requiring a 20-foot all-weather access into that thing. So that would probably, in the case of an emergency, give adequate room for fire suppression equipment to get in as people are leaving. Would that fair enough assessment?
That is true. That provides.
Please come up to the mic and because we're being recorded, just give your name. We know you're the fire
My name is Gilbert Portillo. I'm the plan review fire inspector for the county. And your question regarding that is that it provides 2 lanes for exiting and entrance to the subdivision by either emergency personnel entering and civilian personnel leaving.
And what are the storage tank size that's on that, for that 8-home subdivision?
Okay, well, as far as the water storage tanks is concerned, that's governed by the National Fire Protection Association, and that is a NFPA 1142. The water storage tanks are based on the size of the structure. And that's the square footage, and it can be anywhere from a minimum of 2,000 gallons up to whatever the calculation is for that residence.
There wouldn't be one common tank. Each structure would be required to have its own
Each
water,
one would have to
or
have
it
its
could have
own,
common,
and depending on the size of each residence.
but it could have one big common also, correct?
That would be under different regulations. That would be the California Fire Code Appendix B, and then fire hydrants, depending on the depth of the subdivision. That could be one hydrant or it could be multiple hydrants.
So the way it is now, there would be basically one hydrant per structure.
No, it would be one hydrant per 500 feet.
Through the chair, I think the question is if they go to the individual tanks, was that
Correct.
you're asking? If they go to
Okay.
the individual tanks, how do you hook up to the tanks?
Yes, it would be on the driveway approaching the structure, and it'd be individual fire connections.
I have a question. It was my understanding that there was one building per site. Did I hear that?
One house per lot?
Yeah,
Yes.
no barns, no other, no other
Oh, they could have accessory structures and/or they could, under our great state's code, have a second ancillary unit, yes. But again, it's based on square footage.
I'm in Three Rivers and I have 4,500 gallons. Is that something that's gonna be similar for each one of these, houses?
It could be. There again, it depends on the size of the structure.
And to clarify that, the intent is to have the ability for the fire apparatus to draw from that water for a certain period of time that would give you reasonable success to suppress that fire. So that's calculated at the size of that structure, that's the amount of water we need in theory to suppress that fire.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't all the homes, the structures required to have fire sprinkler systems that are connected to the
that is-
storage tank?
That is correct. Fire sprinkler systems are required since, I believe, 2010.
And is that a separate pump that comes out of that tank to provide the water to the houses?
It could be, but we leave that up to the calculations of the sprinkler company that's going to install the sprinkler system.
So the fire sprinklers are designed to keep the fire in check in order to get everybody out of the house. They're not designed to suppress the fire, it's to get people out of the house.
Okay. Other questions?
Is the minimum standard that the code requires, the code that you cited, or the regulation that you cited, something that you guys are comfortable working with in that area? Does that code apply to the conditions that you see out there? Like if you were to have to fight a fire with the minimum standard in the code backing you, would you be okay? Because terrain is different, areas are different.
The requirements are nationwide, so it doesn't matter whether it's in Porterville area or LA, whatever it would be, it's a national standard.
Okay, so is there something that we would need to require, because this is not in the city, not connected to city water, that would be above that standard? Meaning, like, it's different to fight a fire in Three Rivers than it is on the plain, than it is, in a different mountain area. There's different conditions. And I remember when we were talking about the Three Rivers plan, Chief Norman was up here and he was talking about, there's better scenarios for you guys to give you better resources to fight with. So is there anything about this area, and I don't know that specific area, is there anything about that area that you wish you would have more than the minimum? Because I would hate to throw you guys into a situation where you're fighting with the minimum.
So in that particular area, as you referenced Three Rivers, Three Rivers is more remote. So takes more time to get a water tender or two up there and additional fire apparatus. In that particular area, we have mutual aid agreements with the city of Porterville. We have Station 19, Station 20. So there is adequate fire apparatus to get there quicker because there's more available there. So to answer your question, I think with the minimum standards that we have here, we're in pretty good shape.
Okay, any other questions from the fire department?
Do you bring in a tanker in those type of locations, or do you have to determine that you need it before you bring it?
Depending on the given area, we have what we call a response matrix. So if we determine that we need 3 engines, a water tender, and a breathing support, then that would be on initial response. So once that's developed, the battalion chiefs and our operations chief would determine what the appropriate response is for that. In most cases, you will see a water tender respond even if there is a water system there. So we have more than enough water that way.
I have a question. Are there already hydrants on Dillon Court? And that Dillon Court goes back in there a couple hundred yards.
From what I remember and what I've been seeing on the site, is that there are no hydrants there, but there are water storage tanks because of residential development in that area already towards the front end of that, near Linda
I don't
Vista.
think there's anything between there and Linda Vista.
There are some, I believe, in a subdivision that is on the south side of Linda Vista, or not, excuse me, not Linda Vista. I guess it is Linda Vista. But it's further east.
Hooked up, are they protected by water tanks, or are they hooked up to city system?
They are not hooked up to city system. It's water storage tanks, individual for residences.
So how would you hook up to the tanks if you had to draw water?
They have a,
With the fire connection that comes off of the water storage tank.
Okay.
my house has one.
And there is a swimming pool. You pump out a swimming pool sometimes, correct?
We can draft out of swimming pools, but it has to meet the same standards as a water storage tank.
So basically, the connection that's in the water storage tanks or for the pools has to be in a location that the fire apparatus, excuse me, with this mask, can have quick access to, so there's not a delayed time trying to get to a remote location, trying to get that water. So, you know, time's of the essence if we have to draw from that water source.
If the water storage tank is inaccessible because there's a fire, you know, around it, in front of it, et cetera, what's your next option?
Well, there's certain clearances that are required around that tank, so that probably wouldn't be a problem. But our next option, like I explained a minute ago, would be a water tender or additional water tenders to draw water from.
Did I hear you had a connection point on the cul-de-sacs?
On those that would.
There are no connections except for, there would be one required for each lot once they come in for, I'm sorry?
At the street, not at the tank.
No, not at the street. Well, let me put it this way. When we require a water storage tank and a fire connection, it would be for each residence. Each residence would have a connection on the driveway approaching the structure.
Okay. It's not at the tank.
Right.
Although you
Because
also
the
have
tank,
one, you also have one on the tank, because every tank I ever put up's got one on it.
well, it depends on where the tank is. It would still have to meet the requirement that it be based on the driveway approaching the structure.
Kind of like a hydrant.
Exactly.
My hydrant's up, my house is up on the hill, and the fire department didn't like driving their trucks up my driveway, so.
I just have in the back of my mind, and these guys tease me about it sometimes, but I have a lot of fire friends. And I remember one of my captain friends talking about how his tanker ran dry. So I don't like, you know, thinking about being in that situation.
You definitely don't want to be in when you're out of water. It's a terrible feeling, so.
Okay.
Is there any further questions? Go ahead.
So at this point, I'd like to call the Public Works Department forward to answer any Public Works questions they may have in regards to the cul-de-sac. Johnson, are you still here?
Familiar?
Just so the Planning Commission knows, it's not necessarily the Planning Department or any other departments that recommend or deny exceptions to the cul-de-sacs. And so as far as historically, the Public Works Department's the department that grants or exceptions when they come in after the tentative map was approved through the final map process, and/or can approve them at the time, or recommend approval at the time of the tentative map or parcel map. And most of the times, you'll see most of your agenda items will have an exception on there. Typically, unless the Public Works Department specifically says they recommend denial, most of them just go forward without necessarily a recommendation. Planning staff at that point just moves forward, assumes the exception's good to go. In this case, as far as the cul-de-sac length, like Sandy had said, it's pretty typical in the county. I've rarely seen the Public Works Department deny cul-de-sac. Have you, in your experience, seen that?
No, Johnson Vang from Public Works RMA, and it is great to be back and see you guys again. Apologies for not attending. We've been working from home for the past few months, so. No, we typically don't have issues with cul-de-sacs. The only requirement the only we require is making sure that the road improvements along that stretch of road is improved to Class 1 county road standards because of the number of lots that the road will be servicing, and also a funding mechanism for the county to maintain the road down the road as well. But if you have any questions at all, let me know. But we don't foresee any issues with this development.
Johnson, this is a public street, right? So it'll be, it's not a public street, it's owned by the people who own the lots, right? So it's a private street.
Correct. So there are, I don't have a map here, but there are two parcels, and then the project site's to the north of that. So there is a 56 irrevocable offer of dedication, which the county, we can work with our right-of-way team, with Public Works, and get that squared away. But prior to those lots there is a 60-foot private easement just adjacent to Linda Vista Avenue. So, correct, that is currently not owned by, none of those roads right now are owned by the county.
But typically, the county does not accept those, so it's the individuals who own the houses are responsible for the maintenance of the street. Is that correct?
So if it's built to county standards, then there is a process to accept it, and then we do take on the maintenance of the roadways, including storm drainage as well. But there does need to be a funding mechanism, and typically for subdivisions, we form, there are a couple options. One would be, the typical way currently is the formation of an assessment district. And so for road improvements, long-term, and also for storm drainage as well. And alternatively, I believe HOAs is another way as well, but we need pretty much confirmation that there needs to be a funding mechanism to maintain the road and storm.
Yeah, right. Through the chair, to answer your question, when it's a PVAE, there is no real funding mechanism. That's amongst themselves to do their own maintenance and form their own maintenance. But if this was a portion of an irrevocable offer of dedication for us to move forward to acquire this as part of our public right-of-way, we would need those assessments districts in place like we do on our larger subdivisions where there are public streets, but this is a PVAE, so it's amongst, like you were saying, it's amongst themselves, amongst the landowners.
So the chances are there'll be an association formed in order to maintain.
The association, or more commonly recently, is the assessment district. And the county would maintain the roadway and the drainage.
So he just said that the county will maintain the roadway?
No, if we were to have a public right-of-way, again, if it stays within the private, then it's their.
That's how I perceive it.
Theirs.
Yes. Okay, any questions on?
It wouldn't be necessarily a assessment district, but it'd be a HOA, some sort of agreement has to be made on maintenance of that, right?
We don't have a requirement for that, but in most cases, we strongly suggest that they form their own maintenance. It's part of the easement agreement that they have maintenance agreements as part of that, and most of them do.
Department of Real Estate would require that.
On the HOA side.
Yes. So, before they start construction, or before they sell anything.
So but as far as, there's no reason not to make this exception for the 660-foot.
Yeah, Public Works is okay with this.
Any other questions?
I have a few. I just want to let you guys go first. You ready, Johnson?
Go for it, Maria.
All right. So the first thing I want to do is thank Sandy for preparing, I'll get to you in just a second, but for preparing all these findings. But the key word or the operative word I'm looking at there at the beginning was the word may. So may versus shall. That's a distinction in which ones we have to take and maybe have to take. The reading that I've done, because I have to periodically refresh here, is that any of the following findings, I'm just going to summarize something here, will require disapproval. So inconsistency with general or specific plan, we talked about that. Second one I have down here is site not physically suited for proposed type or density. Design likely to cause substantial environmental damage, design conflicts with public easements, etc. My understanding, and this is where I'm going to need you to help explain to me a few things, is that a site can be considered not physically suited, not just if the flat land area is suited or suitable, but if, you know, water supply planning for however many years is not there. And given that Porterville has had substantial water issues in the past, my concern now, as it was last meeting, is the water there to support whether it's 8 units or 10 units or whatever else grows in that area now or in the future? Is the water there?
Is the water there as in available to service?
To service those
Development?
homes, to fill the tanks, to give our guys protection when they fight fires, to have the residents be able to drink, is the water there?
So that answer, I don't have that answer, Maria, but I would imagine that, because what we review for is strictly the road improvements and the requirements, but through the environmental process, do you guys review that, Aaron?
There's actually no review process for the adequacy of the water under California law unless we have 500 units or more.
Yeah.
Then SB 10 kicks in, and then we have to do a water supply assessment. The legislature, the state of California specifically put it at 500 units and or 40 acres or greater are the 500 unit equivalents. So what we tend to do on some of the projects that we foresee would utilize extreme amounts of water, larger specific plans, larger expansions of production plants or something like that, then we might ask them to, but on a small subdivision, we have not asked them to as of yet. And more so under CEQA, because I think that's really more towards a CEQA question than an engineering question under our standards. We have not done that. I'd like to add at this, just one more answer to that. The city of Porterville, again, stated in their comment letter, they would not stand in the way of this project moving forward, and they were even suggesting that if they were to hook up to water, that they would connect. If the city of Porterville had those concerns, believe me, they have no qualms about stating them, and we've seen it before. So I don't know, and again, there's no real mechanisms to answer that question, and there's no, we don't have the legislative power or the regulatory authority to force a developer who's not building more than 500 units to forcibly answer that question.
Just clarification here, I'm looking at the new aerial that Sandy provided, and is the project site currently planted with the permanent plantings, or what is that I'm looking at here on this new aerial?
Well, I'd like to, when we get to opening the public hearing, the developer could talk to what's going on today. I don't know if the Google Earth photo is like the absolute latest. I mean, it does look like there was some production going on, but again,
if in fact it is planted and they're still there, obviously, the water's obviously there. It's going to take about 4 acre-feet per acre per year to support that. So if that comes out, that planting comes out, certainly residential impact would be less water use than what is being done there right now.
Well, if it is.
And to agree with you, Mr. Diaz, the amount of water used for kind of the 4 times less for housing is the typical equation. But in this case, with everything being said, there's no doubt that houses use less water than agriculture.
Aaron, I mean, I don't know if this is Johnson and or Aaron's, a question for, so I'll ask you both, maybe. If if there are trees there, what's the regulation on uprooting ag land?
The well, if it's already, land use is residential. So if there was some form of agricultural conversion because it's not zoned for housing, then that's an issue, but this was already zoned RA, correct, Sandy? So it's already zoned for housing.
Also, Mr. Diaz, just a note too, with Google Earth, we do use it quite a bit at Public Works, and typically the aerial images are at least a couple years old. So I haven't been to the site, but I'd imagine that it's probably not like that today, but I'm not certain on that.
Okay.
Well,
Applicant answer that, yes.
Mhm.
Maria, any more?
I'm good.
Save them for the applicant.
And so I'd like to bring up Hector Guerra at this time to answer any CEQA questions you may have about the CEQA process and.
Thank you, Johnson.
While he comes up, I think the water problem in Porterville was on the opposite side of the town, not on that side of the town.
Yes, East Porterville is where the state put in the water lines. Go ahead.
Good morning. When we do our evaluations and when we look at the,
Let's see, you're Hector Guerrero.
oh, I'm sorry, Hector Guerra, Chief Environmental Planner, Resource Management Agency. When we look at all of the resources, obviously we're going to account for safety, hydrology, water supply, just a plethora of issues. And we always use that operative word, substantial. And is it not significant? The other thing we do is we rely on the expertise of persons and departments and agencies like Health and Human Services for like the well supply. We look at expertise from, say, the fire department regarding, road lanes and other, for their fire trucks, the widths and all that. These are, in my opinion, as a CEQA guy, having worked on many of these before, these are readily answered by the experts. And I don't leave room for speculation. And if they tell me a condition of approval requires this to meet that, I'm going to go along with it. Otherwise, I will elevate it to a higher, more stringent, robust document such as an EIR. And, when we answer these questions, I have to rely on that expertise. I cannot speculate. I can appreciate fire safety concerns, and I think Mr. Marquez had pointed out that the intent of the fire sprinklers is just get you out of the house, because lives are more important than structures. And I think he made another really, really good point when he talked about mutual aid response by the city of Porterville. Now, obviously, the Tulare County Fire Department is going to send its resources there if they're available. But what if they're on the other side of on responding to a different fire? What if they're doing something else? Well, we all have mutual aid responses with all of our cities in the county. So, yeah, you get hollered at by help. They're going to show up, and they're going to have the resources to bring into it. And I think the water supply issue is what Mr. Bach brought up about agriculture uses far more water than a residential structure does. And I think it's either a quarter to an acre foot of water that every house uses on average. Some people use more, some people use less. And those water storage tanks are there for that firefighting purposes and or swimming pools if necessary. So I don't see it as a real CEQA issue because to me it's not substantial or significant enough because the experts have testified in writing and now verbally that it is, within the standards. And I think another really good point was made that these are state standards, and sometimes they have to go to, federal standards, and sometimes they do go to a state. But like anything, a minimum is there for a reason. It probably looked at worst case scenario, and they said, okay, the minimum, you got to this. Do you want double that? It's possible. You may want to do that. But I think for CEQA purposes, all of the concerns have been adequately addressed.
Okay, so we have questions of Hector. Anybody would like to ask? Thank you, Hector.
Thank you.
Sandy up, just real quickly. As far as the general plan, and as being one of the, myself being one of the co-authors of the Porterville area plan, this is consistent with the, general plan and the designation and the zoning.
Yes, it is consistent with the general plan and the Porterville Community Plan as it went over earlier in the staff report. And one other thing, when you guys were talking about the slide earlier, which showed the agriculture, and I believe if you look at the aerial image, it was showing an orchard. However, that is no longer there. The trees have been removed, and on June 24th, the agenda packet contained information concerning the past agricultural activity, and also even though the property is zoned rural residential, it is appropriate for something to occur like an agricultural use until development is proposed. So removing the agricultural use isn't changing it from ag zoning to another zoning, because the rural residential zoning is already there, and the previous ag use was just something that was term basis until a development was proposed, and now we have a development proposed.
Well, and just to follow up on that, when we were doing the Porterville area plan, and Porterville is unique, they've had a lot of say to the county of what we would do historically, including suing us. And it was the settlement that caused us to look at the land uses and the urban area boundaries. They were concerned that we were not addressing their concerns in the urban area boundaries all the way up to Lake Success and on some of these other areas. The land use plan that you see for our area plan is very consistent to the Porterville general plan. So everything as far as the land use and the zoning and the setbacks that we have to put in there has been agreed to with the city of Porterville. So as far as the specific plan, or the area plan, our general plan, and the city's general plan, they're all in alignment, at least as far as the zoning and land use on this property.
I don't know if this is a Sandy question or Aaron, so I'm going to tag you both. If, it says this is 600 or 700 feet from the Porterville boundary, right? So if in the future the residents there want to connect, because at that point I assume the builder is going to be out of the picture, having sold the properties. Are we, the county, liable for the connection, or do the homeowners have to pay for that?
The homeowners would have to go through their own process.
Okay.
But the cities typically, when we did the area plan for Porterville, they did 30 annexations like pretty much immediately. So if they wanted this, they would have grabbed it. But like Sandy's saying, there's donuts inside of cities that are county land. There's also the donuts outside, or whatever, the amoeba growing outwards, that they could do, but they chose not to. So that puts the developer in this situation a little bit more difficult of a scenario, because he is so far. But again, if the city wants to annex, they have no qualms doing it. And so they could be a petition by the owners here and or the city itself.
So I think what I'm going to do, and then we can talk afterwards, I want to open the public comment at this time, and so we'll have a second chance. So at this time, are there members of the public who would like to comment on this item? So now's your chance. I understand the developer is here. Is the developer here for Smee Homes? Come on up.
Well, I believe the engineers for Smee Homes here as well.
Well, whoever, Fred Weber.
Or both.
You both can come up, and then. We'll beat up on both of you.
That's not nice.
I know one of them, so.
Yeah. Fred Weber, Forster Weber and Associates. I think that the staff, including Aaron, have addressed most of your concerns. So I don't know what else we can say at this time, so.
I had a question for, so as far as subdivisions, this is pretty prototypical that you've,
Yes.
how many years have you been working in the county?
Since 1987.
Okay.
And the developer, introduce yourself.
Homes.
Say that again, your name is and address?
Ken Turner, Smee Homes.
And your address?
4524 Lark, Visalia.
Okay. So, is our fellow commissioners like to address any of these gentlemen? Go ahead.
So, the trees have been removed, I guess, that was, we.
Trees are there.
They're still there?
Yes, oranges.
Okay.
I just seem to, this question came up, I know, last time. And I mean, is it practical to put these on a consistent water system for the entire subdivision? We should be able to have the technology to do that, and it seems to me it'd be more efficient than a septic and a well and a fire tank for every single structure.
Fred, would you answer that?
It's more feasible just to go with these big lots. If you're talking smaller lots, yeah, it's not gonna pencil to put a system in at all. I know that's not a big concern with Planning Commission, but, you're not gonna find very many big lot subdivisions with water systems.
Okay. Any other questions?
Does this representation that's on the screen talk about, that's the circle? Is that gonna be it, or is it gonna be further back there?
The cul-de-sac moves up to the north.
To the north?
Yeah, it'll be up closer to the north line of the property.
Right, because you want 8 lots out of there. That's a 10-acre site, so I'm kind of
Correct.
drawing pictures
So
on the
it'll,
screens.
they'll trim down the sides of the cul-de-sac and then extend the road up to the north part. Won't go all the way to the north line, but pretty close.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If the planning commission, I know it's cut in half, but if you look at page 16, you can see the cul-de-sac moved all the way up to the north.
Any other questions?
Are you sure?
No, you can add, you go ahead.
Okay, so, is the road gonna be, maintenance of the road gonna be built into, or, I don't know, be kept up by a homeowners association, or I think we heard something about that last meeting, but I wasn't quite clear on how you're going to, I just don't want the county to have to step in.
Well, if the county, I'm stepping in for Randy. This isn't really my project, so I'm filling in here.
We're blaming you anyway, your name's on the signs.
Yeah.
It's my understanding this is going to be dedicated to the county, at which time the assessment district will be formed up for maintenance.
But regardless, correct me, you're the expert on subdivisions, but regardless, you're gonna have to file a public report, and you're gonna have hard answers on how that street is maintained.
SMEs will have to do that when they do their public report.
Right, so before you can sell any houses or do anything, you gotta have that public report, correct?
Right.
And that's provided by the Department of Real Estate, a whole nother level of government that tells you what you can do and can't do.
Right.
And this is for SME builders, you're not gonna build those lots until you have all that cleared up, is that correct?
Get stuff cleared up.
Stated in the record. Okay?
Yeah, we'll have to get a pink slip. Is that what you're asking me? We'll have to get a pink slip from the DRE before we sell houses.
Report done before you sell lots, because you can't sell lots.
Right. That's the pink slips he's talking about.
Right, okay. Maria?
I think I'm out of questions for now.
Anybody else? If not, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give testimony on this subdivision, for or against? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment and move on to the staff's recommendation.
Sandy, if you can come up and give the staff recommendation. Just one more clarification. Did we get any calls or comments from any of the neighbors on this project? Did you get any calls or comments from any of the neighbors?
No, I did not.
And no one has called in yet, Vilma?
No, we have no calls.
As far as recommendation, staff was recommending that it's not possible to make the findings required by section 66474 of the Subdivision Map Act in order to deny tentative subdivision map 20-002 for SME Homes Incorporated. And as a result, staff recommends that the commission, number one, resume the public hearing, which you've already done and closed. And number two, recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve a categorical exemption consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act and the state CEQA guidelines pursuant to section 15303, class 3, pertaining to new construction or conversion of small structures, and conditionally approve tentative subdivision map 20-002 to subdivide the 10.04 acre parcel into 8 lots north of Porterville with 2 exceptions, and a final map is required.
Thank you. I think I'll just, we can move this on to my fellow commissioners. Someone like to make the motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve? Someone like to make that motion?
I just want to make a comment.
I just wanted to ask a question to the chair. Could you check with Steve to see if he listened to last week's, or 2 weeks ago?
Oh, I know you asked me that early.
Yeah,
You listened,
Here last week.
Yeah.
but you didn't listen, so you can't
Did you
vote.
listen to the,
Okay, so that's okay.
okay.
I'm probably going to support it, but I don't like it well enough to make a motion.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I mean, looking at these, cul-de-sac subdivisions, to me, it's like looking at the 1990s, and I don't see us really going forward in this specific instance, where we see this other kind of development around here. I suppose we can, move forward on this one, but if this was out and nothing was around it, but perhaps more of those trees like are growing north of the project, I could not support this, and I think we ought to come back with something that moves this subdivision business a little bit into the future instead of reaching back to the past. And like I said, seeing what's patched in there around it, it's probably okay, but I think in the future, we need to look forward on doing something in this to make everybody on some kind of system here that serves the entire subdivision. I just wanted to say that.
Would I have a motion, please? Wayne?
I'll make the motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors approve a categorical exemption consistent with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the state CEQA guidelines pursuant to Title 14, California Code Regulations, Section 15303, Class 3, pertaining to new construction or conversion of small structures, and conditionally approve TSM 20-002 to subdivide the 10.04 acre parcel into 8 lots north of Porterville with 2 exceptions, and a final map is required. I don't have that little box.
It's coming. Right, Vilma?
Yes.
While we're waiting for that, it's coming.
It's up, and we're waiting for a second.
Okay, we have a second, please? Someone push the second button?
That better be you.
Okay, I'll second this. Vote? Motion carried, and thank you very much. We had 2 abstains. Okay. Okay, moving right along, we're going to go to the next item.
Through the chair, we request a 5-minute break at this time before we go to our, we've been here for a long time. Do you need a 5-10-minute break?
We're going to have a 5-minute senior citizen break, so.
It's discriminatory. What about juniors?
Wait a second.
Okay.
So, what's the suggestion?
I'm already getting AARP mail.
This was affordable housing or low-income housing?
Yeah.
It's a 1-acre lot of the country. The July 8th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, and we'll go to the last item, but before we do, I think Commissioner Diaz has a disclosure for.
Yes, I've been the land consultant for the applicant in the acquisition of this and other projects or other solar. So I will have to recuse myself from this, from any actions here, and I've got no problem with that, but I've been advised by county council that the Fair Political Practices Committee is not only strongly recommending, but almost insisting that I actually leave the room. I want to go on the record as protesting that point because it's forcing me to give up my rights as a private citizen to participate in these proceedings.
We got David Alexander as our presenter today, so.
Mr. Chair, since this is the last item on the agenda today, and I'm not going to sit and wait, I'm done for the day.
You don't want to hear the director's report?
No.
All right.
He needs to be deaf.
David, go ahead.
It can be that way.
You need to open it up, yeah, sorry.
Good morning, Chairman Whitlatch, Commissioners. I'm David Alexander, Planner 2 for Tulare County RMA. Before you this morning is a special use permit, number 19-083, and associated initial study mitigated negative declaration and adoption of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for a 40 megawatt solar facility near Alpha. The applicant is Angiola East LLC. The location of the facility is approximately 1 mile southeast of the town of Alpha. The ownership, there are 4 separate landowners covering approximately 277 acres. A consultation request was sent out on February 3rd, 2020 to the Tulare County Building Division, Environmental Coordinator, Public Works, Solid Waste, and Fire Department, as well as the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, Department of Fish and Wildlife, Regional Water Quality Control Board, the Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Conservation, Edison International, and the Tulare County Farm Bureau. Hearing notification. This is also the hearing notification map for the area. This project was noticed according to the law in the Sun Gazette on June 10th, 2020. Staff received 1 phone call from a neighboring property owner that had no issue with the project. He just wanted assurance that construction would not happen on his property. In addition, the Alpha Irrigation District responded with a phone call and a subsequent letter from their attorney, which will be addressed shortly. An environmental assessment initial study identified potentially significant effects on the environment and a mitigated negative declaration, MND, and a mitigation monitoring reporting program, MMRP, were prepared, indicating that although the project may have a significant effect on the environment, mitigation measures were incorporated to the project that would reduce any impact to a point where clearly no significant effect on the environment would occur, and there is no substantial evidence that the project, as revised, would have a significant effect on the environment. The MND was sent to the State Clearinghouse. State Clearinghouse number 20200505500 for a 30-day public review period between May 22nd, 2020 and June 22nd, 2020. Comments from the Department of Toxic Substances Control requested that the applicant adhere to the Department of Toxic Substances Control guidelines for soil testing, which has been made a condition of approval. It is number 70 in the draft resolution. Entitlement is found in section 16 of ordinance number 352 as amended. The zoning ordinance allows the construction and operation of public utility structures in the AE 80 zone, subject to approval of a special use permit. Relevant general plan policies are AG 2.11 energy production and LU 7.15 energy conservation. Two of the landowners are under a agricultural preserve and land conservation contract. Findings for compatibility for uniform rules for agricultural preserves and Williams-Sonoma contract contents. The Board of Supervisors resolution number 2010-0458 adopted zoning interpretation that solar and wind electrical generation facilities are included within the meaning of private and public utility structures, and where the electrical generation is designed for off-site sale is subject to the special use permit. If approved, would be consistent with the zoning ordinance. This is the vicinity map. As you can see, it's approximately 1 mile southeast of Alpa. This is the overall aerial map for the project. And the following three slides will be the site plan. This renewable energy project is a 40 megawatt solar generation facility that will be located on approximately 277 acres and will primarily consist of photovoltaic panels, a single axis tracker system, inverters and transformers, electrical cabling and communication lines, on-site switchgear, generation tie-in lines, access roads, and a security fence. The project will interconnect at the existing Olive substation, which is immediately to the north. And the project may also include a 80 megawatt hour storage component in the form of batteries. Construction is anticipated to begin in late 2020, with the project becoming commercially operational by 2021 for a lifespan of 35 years. A developer agreement and reclamation plan for solar facilities are also part of this special use permit, incorporated in the resolution conditions of approval number 21, 22, 23, and 25. The developer agreement, the draft developer agreement is attachment number 2, Exhibit D, on page 122 of your packet. In response to the concerns of the Alpa Irrigation District that were addressed through a letter from David Kahn of Kahn, Soares, and Conway, Angiola East sent a response letter to address these concerns, which was received on July 1st. The first concern is the only access to the proposed project site is across certain unmaintained roads, i.e. not maintained by Tulare County, including the bridge crossing the Alpa Canal. The roads are in poor condition and heavy use will continue to deteriorate such roads, which are relied on heavily by the district in its operations. The response for that concern is Angiola East LLC is willing to coordinate preparation of construction drawings for bridge improvements with the Alpa Irrigation District and seek final approval by Tulare County prior to construction to ensure the bridges do not adversely interfere with Alpa Irrigation District's operations and meet the county's engineering and safety standards.
But just stop just right there. We did a big project, approved a big project south of this, and the roads looked like we dropped bombs there, you know, that they were that bad. So they're gonna fix all these roads, is what you're saying?
The applicant is here. I'll let him
Okay.
answer
Thank
directly
you.
to you at the time. To continue, the second area of concern was in order to access the proposed location, the applicant will use canal banks and other infrastructure belonging to and maintained by Alpha Irrigation District. The heavy use and equipment will deteriorate and erode the district's infrastructure and facilities, putting the district's operations in peril. Angiola East responded, prior to construction of the project, Angiola East LLC will contract with the surveyor to mark all above ground and underground infrastructure to ensure damage to existing facilities is avoided. Signs shall be posted throughout the project area to notify construction personnel of areas that are off limits, including canal banks. Angiola East LLC also proposes to contract with the Alpha Irrigation District employees to monitor construction activities in the vicinity of Alpha Irrigation District's facilities to ensure the necessary precautions and mitigation measures are implemented and complied with. The third concern was the applicant has advised the Alpha Irrigation District it will require easements for certain project infrastructure across or under Alpha Irrigation District's canals and other infrastructure. The district is not going to grant the required easements. I do want to note at this point that this letter with these concerns was mailed out on February 18th. And the reply from Angiola East came in on July 1st, so some time had passed while they were in communication. And the response to that concern was, prior to construction, designated access routes shall be established for construction workers and equipment deliveries. Construction personnel will not be permitted to use unapproved access routes and irrigation canal banks to access the project site.
So that's saying they will not need an easement? They will not be in their property? Is that?
No, the concern in the beginning was that work was going to have to take place within the irrigation district's right-of-ways. The work will be done in the right-of-ways of Tulare County. The last concern was the district has learned that solar projects such as the one contemplated by the applicant use various chemicals and materials in the maintenance and cleaning of the solar panels and projects. The runoff from rain events and/or the cleaning of the panels may flow into the district's irrigation system and compromise its water quality. Moreover, the panels create erosion as water runoff flows off of the panels and into the ground. The water then percolates into the groundwater relied on heavily by the district and its growers, and/or flows into district facilities, jeopardizing the water quality for the district. The response for that concern is the project site is relatively flat and does not require grading for construction of the project. Therefore, the project does not propose to change the existing drainage or runoff patterns. During construction, the project will prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan, otherwise called the SWIP, and implement approved best management practices as described in the initial study mitigated negative declaration completed for the project. The SWIP will be designed to reduce potential impacts related to erosion and surface water quality during construction activities and throughout the life of the project.
And as a QSD, do you find that true? That statement?
It was QSP.
Yes.
But yes, any construction that takes over more than an acre, you have to have a SWIP implemented by a qualified specialist, a QSD, and it's the best management practices that go site by site. It's not an overall, it's not a catch-all type of program. And so best management practices will be ordered in the area to reduce or completely stop erosion and protect the quality of the water. Also, to this concern, I do want to note two more things. The Department of Toxic Substances Control had no issue with the project. They only requested that the applicant adhere to their guidelines for soil testing. Also, Regional Water Quality Control Board was asked for a consultation. No comments were received. So there seemed to be no issue on their part for water quality of this project in this area.
On the soil testing, is that before and after?
Both.
Is that-
Yeah, just to make sure that nothing happened during construction. And lastly, in the response from the letter that I wanted to share is Angela East LLC is prepared to, one, establish a general fund prior to construction to provide financial assurances for costs to implement the mitigation measures discussed. Two, execute a mutually agreed indemnification agreement with the Alpal Irrigation District. And three, upon completion of project construction, contribute a portion of the remaining general fund to the Alpal Irrigation District or other beneficiary designated by the Alpal Irrigation District to further benefit the Alpal community. And as part of this presentation at this time, I would like the applicant to come up, who also has a presentation of his own.
Okay, and I think I need to open the public hearing to have him come forward.
That would be okay, but the presentation really explains the project better, but yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll have the applicant come up, and I'll start with him in opening the public hearing.
This does end staff report.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're not done with it yet, but
Done.
Back up for the recommendation later.
Now, to be fair, we're gonna have to ask you a ton of questions.
Mm-hmm.
oh, no. So stick around. So the applicant, would you please come forward, please?
Can you exit out of your PowerPoint? Right.
What was that, Velma? Can't hear you.
Okay, thank you, David.
Before you start, I visited the last project that you did south of here. That's correct?
Not to my knowledge, that may have been prepared or developed prior to my employment.
Anyway, there was a Samsung project because we attended an open house. It's just south of there. But anyway, go ahead and start your presentation.
All right, well, thank you, David, for that presentation, and good morning, Chairman Whitlatch and members of the commission. My name is Adam Furman, and I'm a permitting manager at Samsung Renewable Energy. And I'm here to present our Angela Solar project. And most of this information was just covered by David, so luckily it won't take me too long to get through this information, because I fogged up my glasses. Okay, actually, prior to starting this, I did want to mention that there were also some support letters that came in during the public comment period from some of the landowners we are working with. So I just want to make that note. So the Angela Solar project is a 40 megawatt solar project that will be located on approximately 277 acres of vacant land that is zoned exclusive agriculture. The project is anticipated to have an approximate lifespan of 35 years and will interconnect at the Olive substation that is owned and operated by PG&E and located approximately half a mile north of the project. Construction is anticipated to last approximately 8 months, and the county prepared a CEQA mitigated negative declaration for the project. Here is an aerial view of the project site, and as you can see, it is located in southwestern Tulare County, adjacent to the existing White River Solar project. The blue is the outline of the project site, and the yellow indicates electrical lines that will connect the two sites and then interconnect the site to the Olive substation located to the north.
Through the chair, they located in the ground or above the ground, the electrical lines?
It is our preference to do underground, but we have options to do above or underground, but it is our preference to do underground. Project components includes photovoltaic panels that will be installed on a single axis tracker system. Electrical equipment includes, but is not limited to, combiner boxes, inverters, transformers, the project substation, a meteorological substation. There will be installation of a 6-foot security fence, Internal access roads will be improved both on and off-site. And there is potential to include an energy storage system with a capacity of 80 megawatt hours. Project construction can generally be divided into 3 separate phases. Phase 1 is site preparation. And given the site is a relatively flat site, we do not require grading, and instead we will be deploying a low-impact mow and roll technique, which essentially just removes a lot of the existing vegetation. Access roads will be improved, again, both off and on-site to help with construction and deliveries. Parking and staging areas will be established, and a security fence will be set up. Phase 2 will be the system installation itself. During this phase is probably when we will have the most amount of laborers on site, and it is just a systematic installation of the tracker system as well as the photovoltaic panels. Phase 3 will be primarily for the electrical equipment, where they will install the combiner boxes, transformers, inverters, SCADA system, electrical cabling, and the substation or switching station. The project is anticipated for a 35-year lifespan and will be operating 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We anticipate panel washing about 1 to 2 times per year, depending on the rainfall. So if rainfall is at average or above, we most likely will not need to clean the panels. Panel washing will be a mechanical cleaning system that only utilizes water. In most cases, panels are not covered under warranty if chemicals are applied to them during panel washing. The project will be monitored from a remote location via a supervisory control and data acquisition system. So while we will be performing periodic maintenance during the lifetime of the project, whether it's just repairing some of the facility or doing vegetation management, there will be no long-term employees located on site. And we will also be installing a security fence with inward lighting and cameras as well. Now, in addition to the mitigation measures outlined in the CEQA document and the conditions of approval and the staff report, the Angiola East and Samsung are committed to developing a project-specific mitigation plan that specifically addresses some of the concerns that were raised during the permitting process. Now, David had kind of highlighted our response to comments, but I just want to mention that it should be included in your staff report. It kind of goes into more detail about our exact plans and what we intend to do to help alleviate the concerns and avoid the impacts. So as mentioned, there is a stormwater management plan that will be required for the project. However, we are committed to go above and beyond what is typically required in a SWIP. For example, we would be willing to consider stormwater or retention ponds on site to alleviate any additional concerns of stormwater. Samsung is committed to establishing a general fund prior to construction of the project for improvements to the local roads and the bridges. Now we understand that they are unmaintained roads around the site, so all designated access roads leading to the project site will be improved and maintained throughout the life of the project. Any damages caused during construction will be repaired during and after construction. There are some bridges out there, and we are proposing to either do one of 2 items. One, we can either temporarily improve the bridges, or we can do a permanent replacement of the bridge. And that would be done at using the funds in the general fund, and those plans would be developed in coordination with the county, and we would consult with the irrigation district in preparation of those plans. Also previously mentioned was protection of existing infrastructure by bringing surveyors out there to mark both underground and above ground and set up signs throughout the project area showing where the designated routes are and what areas are off limits to construction personnel. There will be coordination with the local community and stakeholders. And in addition to an indemnification agreement that is already executed with the county, we are committed to establish or executing an additional indemnification agreement with the irrigation district or any other entities in the area. And as I mentioned, these are all outlined in our response to comments included in your staff report. So some of the project benefits I want to discuss are not necessarily specific to this project, but they are benefits that solar development in general can bring to Tulare County. And there's been quite a bit of development in the county, so I'm sure you're aware of most of these items, but I just kind of wanted to highlight some of them. So of course, there's the increased tax revenue to Tulare County. And these projects also provide an additional source of income for some of the landowners in the region. This is a particular benefit given the uncertain times going forward with drought conditions, water supply, and the eventual implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Projects also stimulate the local economy during construction. The improvements to the local roads and bridges will not be just for construction, but will be for the long term, for the entire life of the project. So that will go to benefit all the landowners in the area, as well as potentially the Alpog Irrigation District. The projects like these require almost no services from the county. And of course, these projects provide clean, renewable energy. And this particular project, the 40 megawatt project, is anticipated to offset approximately 80,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide. That concludes my presentation. So I'm here for any questions, and I also want to mention we do have some other folks here who are subject matter experts. So if there are particular questions about some impacts or how we intend to mitigate those impacts, I can answer them to the best of my ability, but there's also some folks here to support us.
I'm going to have my fellow commissioners grill you ask you questions. We might have your other support people come up with you.
Okay.
And just remember when they speak to just need your name and address for the record, okay? So do we have any questions?
You want to bring up any support?
Sure. Dawn, do you want to come on up? And Amanda, do you want to come on? Just in case.
Okay. So we have questions. We'll start with Steve.
I have a couple.
Steve, you have any questions?
Well, I woke up, wait a second. The duration of the project was, did I see 8 months?
Yeah, approximately 8 months, 6 to 9 months, but we anticipate about 8 months.
And inconvenience to the community there is non-existent?
I mean,
Feed all the employees, I don't know, I mean,
so there will be periodic times where there is increased traffic, and we will notify all the landowners in the area during times of deliveries, whether we're delivering the panels. or
Adam,
packing.
speak to the microphone too.
So during times of high traffic, landowners will be notified, but it will not be consistent traffic levels throughout the entirety of the project. There will be the daily commutes of the laborers, but for the most part, most of the traffic will be just during delivery times.
Just to clarify, you said that the cleaning of the panels will be water only?
Correct.
Okay. And 16,000 gallons is how many swimming pools? No, I'm just trying to get my head around
That's
that.
not even my pool. It's about 3/4.
I'm not good with abstracts like that, so I have to kind of really.
20,000 gallons is
A pool?
typical.
Okay. And then the other question I have for you, and I'm going to need a refresher from Aaron because you have all this in your memory, is the last two, I believe, solar projects that we did, we applied conditions for what happens after the project and for what happens if the project goes fallow within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and if you look at the conditions we put in this one, we pretty much copied.
Okay, I was trying to bring it back up, but I couldn't see that, so yeah.
Conditions 22 through 26 are
Got it.
heavily negotiated language we did last time.
All right.
John?
I really have nothing on this one. It's out in the middle of nowhere, so.
There's people out there.
Cows.
You all have a power purchase agreement, I presume,
Correct.
35 years?
So they're typically not for 35 years. Sometimes they can be 10, 15, or 20 years. I have another colleague of mine here who may be able to speak to the terms of our current PPA. But typically what happens is at the end of the life of the PPA, it's usually sign up another PPA. And so, but we are able to prepare once, the contract comes to its close, we are able to sign up a new contract.
Second question, power purchase agreement, okay, you answered that. If the form factor changes on the photovoltaic cells, is that written in your contract where you can expand the capacity of that installation? In other words, things get smaller. Same things with computers, so. Everything gets smaller.
Well, the special use permit is for a 40 megawatt only project. So if we had any plans to expand beyond 40 megawatts, I mean, Aaron, you may be able to speak to this, but we'd have to come back to the planning staff and the planning commission to get, either an additional permit or modification of our existing permit, but we are only proposing 40 megawatts for this permit.
So that's in the contract?
For the PPA? Correct, yes.
And with the county?
Yes. Well, if this gets approved, that will be, only for 40 megawatts. We cannot go beyond that.
Okay. I think that's it for the moment.
Okay. Let's, my accountant friend.
So this is right next to one that already exists, that, based on that picture, is that correct?
Correct.
And how far is the one that's on Avenue 56 from this one?
Is that the White River Solar Project? No.
Washam knows everything about the solar program in the state of California, Tulare County.
Mike Washam, RMA. Just to touch a couple spots. On the we do have reclamation requirements that they have to put up bonding to reclaim the land to the way it currently exists, should they go defunct or at the end of the project's life, that if they don't reclaim it, we have the money to be able to do it. The question as far as I believe that's the Alpal 50 and Alpal North, which is just on the north side of Avenue 56. That's probably a couple miles north of this spot, because the White River is south of Avenue 56, so that's to the north.
And who did that one? Was that?
That was, no, it wasn't Samsung, it was, I don't know, well, we have the person that probably did the CEQA right here. I can't remember, but it's been sold a couple times. 95% of all of our projects right now have been sold, and Con Ed out of New York owns the vast majority of all these. Once they get built and developed, Samsung is really, with the exception of that Samsung one that you're talking that's further south,
Correct.
That one is still owned by Samsung. All of the other projects that have been built have been sold off to other larger companies. Like I said, 95% of it's all with Con Ed.
They hosted a luncheon for us, and I drove out there, and I'm telling you, the road, did they ever fix the road?
Well, the road, I know that, it looked like craters on the moon for sure, but those are some of the conditions we have out there anyway. It's not necessarily attributed directly to the project, but we have gone out there and performed maintenance out there on those roads. That's probably one of the worst roads I've seen in the county. So.
Did you have an answer for that question, though, as far as who did those projects?
Don Marple, Provo and Pritchard, 130 North Garden Street, Visalia. The applicant for all of those projects that Mr. Washam just discussed was Solar Project Solutions, and they're no longer in business. And I believe they did sell all of those projects to Con Edison out of New York, as Mr. Washam stated.
So I'd also like to remind the Planning Commission, this also comes with a developer agreement, sales tax revenue, sharing, et cetera. So, I mean, outside of our use permit, and as Mike was just saying, the reclamation plan, plus the development agreement and the surety that goes along with it guarantee the reclamation. One other thing I did want to add is, like we talked about last time, we did thoroughly, if you remember that, thoroughly go through and add the conditions the Planning Commission suggested last time that are in this document here today. But go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, I would just say that as we go forward with projects like this, we've improved and added conditions along the way, and they maintain. So yeah, we do have the developer agreement as well as the reclamation bonding. The sales tax agreement, one of the things we found early on with some of the projects, contractors that were actually building it out were located in LA, and they placed their orders through LA, and LA got the sales tax for all the infrastructure they installed. So now we require that the situs for the point of sale to be actually the location of the project. That has, one project alone brought $2.5 million worth of revenue to the Tulare County overall, just on the sales tax on one of the larger ones. So.
Anything else you'd like to say? We'll let you come back at the end if there's any.
Okay, sure, I'll come back.
Thank you very much. This is a public comment time, so is there anyone else who would like to come forward and testify for or against? So give your name and address for the record.
My name is Bruce Howarth, Howarth. I'm the general manager for Alpal Irrigation District, which was established in 1915 and has been operational, serving 12,000 acres and 350 landowners. I'm also general manager of Alpal Community Service District, which is a disadvantaged community that provides domestic water to 354 customers, the school, and industrial fertilizer plant. I'm also general manager of Deer Creek Stormwater District, which is one of the oldest districts in Tulare County. It was established in 1897 and has the responsibility of flood control of over 64,000 acres. My last one is I'm general manager of Alpal GSA. This is an entity that is responsible to manage SGMA and become sustainable in groundwater by 2040. My comments, I have utmost respect for RMA and their process, but I'm here to address issues with initial study of mitigation negative declaration. My ask is that it be reissued for public comments again. It was riddled with errors to the point that the site that was in the CEQA document was west of or east of Tulare. The school that was mentioned in the CEQA document was Woodville. There's since been a correction by RMA to the document, but Alpal did not receive that through their attorney until July 3rd. I didn't get it until yesterday afternoon, and reading CEQA documents until 2 in the morning because I had one day is not on my bucket list. And there's still omissions and errors in the document. Example, the nearest airport is Medford. There's a private airport that Boswell owns that's very close to Alpal. Yeah, it's 500 yards in Kings County. We probably don't talk to Kings County, but we, should include that in a CEQA document. There's 4 public entities that haven't been consulted in the CEQA. The public entities that were consulted were the school and the fire department, but AID, Alpal Community Service District, Deer Creek, and the Alpal GSA weren't included in the CEQA document. They didn't have the opportunity to, other than reading the Gazette, to have input into the CEQA document. So, our ask is that those things be corrected, it be reissued. It's in the statute. Of my lawyer can quote it, I think it's 1530, that if there's errors, it should be recirculated. The other area that I want to talk about is there's easements that this project's requesting on AID property. Our board's discussed it for well over 5 months. And they finally made the resolution that they are not going to grant easements across our water conveyance systems. It's too important to our district, be it transmission lines or bridges or using the canals. I agree with you. I endured my first year that the solar plant, I think it was Atwell Island, which was about 8 miles south of us. I endured that construction when I first started. I've been there 5 years, and it was like Baghdad. They ended up using our canal banks because the roads were so bad, and then they started calling me, complaining about how bad my canal banks were after about 6 months. So the infrastructure doesn't exist for an industrial use. The county has walked away from the roads in Alpal. I have a rule of thumb: if there's a cloud in 30 miles, I don't get off the pavement. I got stuck 27 times last year on county roads because they're not there. Okay.
Did they repair that road that I was talking about with the bomb
No.
holes?
I lost my pickup in one of them.
You know, we think you were kidding. It's the worst roads even Vietnam had better roads than that, so.
So, you know, I don't want to be, our district doesn't want to be uncooperative, but its existence for its landowners to convey water. And we're not against solar. We are the landlord to the one that Gil was asking about. This particular project's in the wrong place. It's landlocked. The district is not going to give easements, period. And our board has made that decision. This board should respect another public board, in my opinion. And those other 3 boards that I mentioned has a lot of input. The Alpal Community Service District has a lot of infrastructure servicing the 4 remote houses that are out there. They have water lines in the ground, and they've had no input. The Alpal Canal is the end of an uncontrolled river, which is Posey. This is on both sides of Alpal Canal. It's in FEMA flood zone. The other uncontrolled river that ends up about a mile from this facility. And flooding in the lake bed is a reality.
Was this in the lake bed originally before they drained it?
It's on the brim of the Atwell Island that was out of water, but yes, it was in the lake bed. It's flat as a pancake, I can tell you that. We have a canal that's 18 miles long. It starts out at 204 feet. It's 202 feet in the middle of it and ends up at 204 feet. So the water and flooding is a reality because there's 3 uncontrolled rivers that end up within 2 miles of each other.
So is that canal in the middle lower because of subsidence?
Excuse me?
You said that starts out at 204, in the middle it's 202, and it ends up at 204. Is the reason it's lower in the middle is because of subsidence? Or?
I believe so. I believe so. For our district, subsidence is a reality. Corcoran's sunk 20 feet in the last 10 years. So we have to, in the foreseeable future, reconstruct our canals, and we'll probably do it for quite a while. And so if there's a power line underneath of it, it's in the way. If there's a power line over it, I guarantee you I have a couple employees going to hit it with a crane. So our position with the district is we want to limit our liability. You know, A new bridge would be nice, but that's in the millions of dollars. And we still have liability because if a diesel truck drives off the bridge and ends up in our water, there's contamination. So, wanted to talk a little bit about ag land. Okay, when you read the CEQA report, my impression is that that land is how can I describe it? Like a nuclear bomb went off. It's worthless. That's not the case. Any ag land is important to our district. There's been a transformation in our area in the last 5 years, over 12,000 acres of pistachios, which is high-end crops. Love that kind of property. It's not fallow pasture land. And, 277 acres in a 35-year period would generate over $200 million in revenue from pistachio sales. So, ag land is a matter of perspective, I think. And it's valuable and an equally important part to our district because ag is what makes our district survive and has survived for the last 105 years.
So, I want to hear everything you have to say, but I want my commission to have a chance to ask you some questions.
Yes, I just have one more statement. I want to talk about Samsung a little bit. $42 trillion in sales. $1,700 billion in profits. And it baffles me that we would end up in Alpol. Okay? I know the reason why is that Alpol is a severely disadvantaged community and it's a path of least resistance and the most profitable. Okay? That's a reality. A lot of my landowners, even though they own land, they're disadvantaged people. And you won't find them in front of the commission for a lot of reasons. And I beg you to take that into consideration to be part of this CEQA analysis and part of your ultimate decision to grant this or not. Disadvantaged, severely disadvantaged lives matter. Okay,
I agree.
glad to
Don't
answer.
go.
Okay.
Does anyone like to have a question at this time?
Is that real property we're talking about in production now?
It has, some of it has been in production in the last 5 years. I can bring a busload of pistachio growers to develop that for you. And
I was wondering about the easements too. What, is that over the water district's actual water facilities? Is that roads? Is that just part of this real estate we're talking about?
I didn't hear the first part of your question.
The easements that the water district would normally grant, what are those composed of?
They're water conveyance canals. They're open canals. Most of our water, surface water, comes from Deer Creek through the Defiant system. We have to lift our water 24 feet because the town is 24 feet higher than, so we have a lift station right at the crossing, so it's open canals.
Any other questions? We can come back later, okay? Thank you. We have one other gentleman that wants to testify. Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning, Chairman Whitlatch, members of the commission. My name is Ronnie Young. I live at 31652 Road 68 in Visalia. I serve as the business manager, financial secretary for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We represent over 1,000 electrical workers in Tulare, Madera, Kings, and Fresno counties. I also sit on the board of directors for the Tulare County Workforce Investment Board, also the Kings County Workforce Investment Board. And at our last couple Tulare County meetings, Adam Peck, the WIB director, has talked about the unprecedented amount of unemployment we have for this time of year, obviously due to the coronavirus. Projects like the Angela Solar Project are vital to the economic recovery of Tulare County. It provides local residents in these underserved communities with employment opportunities, career opportunities. We have achieved some amazing numbers with some of the solar projects we've done in Tulare County, Kings County, Fresno County. And I'll give you some examples. Right now we got a Corcoran 3 solar project going. And this is a project that is being, the high-speed rail's cutting it in half, so they're moving it. So the numbers aren't as great as the others, but we currently have, or up to date, we've had 25 electrical workers working on this project. We just finished up a project in Madera, 60 megawatt Lotus project. So it would be about the size of this Angela Solar project. We have had 180 electrical workers working on this project. And you're looking at journeyman electricians, apprentice electricians, and solar panel installers. And that's not counting the other trades. So you might add another 100, if not more. We also currently are under construction with the Mustang 2 solar project. It's over by Lemoore Naval Air Station on the south side of the Avenal Cutoff Road. It's at a 160 megawatt project. We currently have 138 electrical workers on this project. Across the street, you have the American Kings 170 megawatt solar project. That's being done by a Visalia electrical contractor, AC Electric. We have 158 electrical workers. And like I said, that's not counting the other trades. So you could add another 125, maybe even 150. We're also doing a project in Mendota right now, 180 megawatts. The Little Bear Solar Project, we have 168 workers. A lot of times, well, just about every time for these projects, we utilize local residents in these underserved communities. So like I said, we're giving them job opportunities, even career advancement. All these positions obviously have a wage with room for advancement, increases, they have healthcare benefits, and they get a travel allowance. I reach out to the workforce connections of Tulare County, Kings County, Fresno County to utilize their services to reach out to these underserved individuals in these communities. A lot of times if they qualify, they will get work boots, work shirts, pants, tools if needed. They get a travel allowance, childcare if they need it. Now, I grew up in Visalia, went to Redwood High School, College of Sequoias, and back in the 70s, where I lived, you could view the Sierra Nevada mountains. You could see the mountains just about every day. It was rare if you couldn't. Now, it's the other way around. With the air pollution we have, it's rare if you can see them. So obviously you got this project, clean energy. Gonna reduce your carbon footprint, good for the local residents in these underserved communities, give them the job opportunities, good for the county, increased tax base. So I support the project and I appreciate it if you would support it as well.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, come on up, give us your name and address for the record.
Jesus Castaneda, 35334 Arrowhead Lane, Squaw Valley, California, 93675. and I am here on behalf of Ironworkers Local 155 Fresno in support of the Angela Solar Project. Our jurisdiction covers 14 counties in Central Valley, California, including Tulare, and would ask that you consider the potential career opportunities that this project may create. And with that, the direct, positive economic impact that would have on the residents of the community. I would ask the members of this board to move forward with this project and approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Dave Clark. I live at 935 Cambridge Street in Exeter, and I'm in the Director of Membership Development for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I'm here to speak in support of this project. And my business manager, Ronnie, he really hit all the right points, and I just kind of want to emphasize briefly that the opportunities that these projects provide for people from these disadvantaged communities to really change their lives I can't emphasize it enough. Even the entry-level positions from the electrical workers come with whole family health care that they don't have to pay out of pocket to cover their whole family. And all the advancement with it, the opportunities that come along with it, I think are critical in these communities, reaching out and letting them know what's available, that they just didn't know this kind of stuff was available for them. And all the other projects that we have, this is just kind of another link in the chain that once they get on this one, they can leapfrog to the next one and the next one and improve their lives for themselves and their families. So anyway, thank you.
I have a question for you there, yeah. So there's been a lot of projects around Alpal. Are there numbers that show that they're using Alpal residents, or is that other communities that happens to?
Those projects I can't attest to right now. We could pull up some numbers, but a lot of it would depend if at the time they became members and we had those detailed records on those individuals. There are some projects where there are a lot of information. There's particular projects where there was PLAs where there's that requirement to use a certain percentage of local hire. But our general with the electrical workers, our general focus is to try to hire as much local people as possible. We want to see the improvement of all these communities. So,
Thank you. Can keep it brief because it's getting close to his lunch.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add it with Gil's question. We reach out to the local workforce connection here connected with the WIB. And, I have told them that, we are looking for local residents, even in the past projects, and refer them to us. And they, agreed to do whatever they could to do the outreach and then get the information to us. And then we'll sit down there and talk with these individuals and see what we can work out.
How many electrical workers are currently employed in the county?
Oh, honestly, I have, from the IBW?
Yeah.
I would have to estimate probably, like I said, not at least, I would say at least 300 to 350. And granted, we also represent Kings County, Fresno, and Madera as well.
And this project would opportune how many more people?
If it's, like I said, it seems to be equivalent to that Lotus project, which was 60 megawatt. So, I mean, I can't speak actually, I don't have the numbers. I don't know if Samsung has them, but that Madera project, which was 60 megawatts, we had at least, I think it was roughly 180 electrical workers on that project. And that's obviously the journeyman electricians, apprentice electricians, and solar panel installers. And that's not counting the other trades.
So that would add over 100 more people employed?
I would say roughly.
And
I
there's
don't have the
300
exact
and some
figures
now?
for the other trades. I can just speak specifically for the electric.
Are there that many electrical people, electricians out of, are unemployed right now?
Right now, we don't have very many unemployed. Like I said, we currently have the 160 megawatt going, the 170 and the 180. We're able to man all the projects along with all the other infrastructure projects that are going on in the counties. But we are a national organization, so we're able to reach out to other states as well and draw people in to do that electrical work.
So if this project came on board, to Gil's point, would you be looking in the Alpa area?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, I'd reach out to the workforce here from Tulare County, and, which I already have for other projects. And, pretty much tell them, obviously, the closer the individual is, the better. And granted, even, so for, Alpa residents, there would definitely be some outreach. And even though they were living there, they would still get the travel to go out to that project as well, to compensate for their gas, wear and tear on the vehicle.
Thank you. I think I'd like to have the applicant please come back and speak to your project.
We'll keep our responses brief, but first I want to introduce Amanda to.
I was just kidding about my lunch. I
Oh,
lose
no,
some
but-
weight, so
but-
it's okay.
Well, I'm hungry, so I'm ready for lunch, but I'm going to have Amanda speak to the issue about the easements.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amanda Myers, and I live at 2202 India Street, Los Angeles, California. And
What town was that again?
I'm sorry?
You live in where now? Oh, Los Angeles. Okay, I couldn't hear
Not
you.
Alpa.
Alpa.
Sure.
And my firm, Hebner and Myers LLP, is a real estate counsel to Samson on this project. And based on our diligence to date, we do not think that easements are required from the Alpa Irrigation District. Our request would be some kind of consent or crossing agreement, which is typical in these type of projects. But to construct the project, we do not need the easements that were referenced before. We thought that in the beginning, but based on the diligence that we've done over the last few months, our conclusion is that they're no longer required.
Any questions?
At least one, depending.
Okay, sure.
So you heard the general manager's comments about, it's an open carry water system, not like open guns, right? But open carry water system, where they don't want lines going over and lines going under because there's going to be future construction for improvement of the canals. How do you address that or get around that?
I would say typically in an agreement of that type, you would build in the protections. So for instance, if they do construct the lines underground, then at the time that the Alpa Irrigation District would want to do their construction, the two sides would come together to either move the lines further underground or to temporarily mitigate any kind of issues that there would be with the Samsung lines during the construction. I would say that an agreement between the two parties is mutually beneficial. It benefits both parties, and any concerns that arise can be built in. So if there is planned construction, they can build that into the agreement that would address concerns that the Alpa Irrigation District would have.
Okay. And are you an attorney?
I am.
Okay. So then, and Aaron is kind of too, right? Okay.
Oh, but
So, and we have county counsel, but so I'm a pretend attorney, I'm not really one. So if I use legal terms incorrectly, go ahead and correct me. But my understanding is that, well, I was gonna say, Eric, Aaron, this goes to the heart of what EJ element and all that is about.
Mhm.
So, in a process where, I would rely on the word of fairness.
Okay.
And based on what I heard from Alpa, this process maybe hasn't been fair. The project may be good, and I like solar. So I tend to support that, but I'm concerned about the process and wanted to know if you thought it was a fair process and if you think that meeting the request of the gentleman from Alpa Irrigation District would be unfair in the long term if we got some of these issues out of the way and dealt with.
So I would say from my perspective, and again, I'm real estate counsel, I've been working on those aspects to the extent that there were issues with CEQA or the environmental process that would be addressed better by somebody else.
But the notifications part.
From what I understand, I think it has been a fair process. I do know that the project company has attempted on many occasions to engage the Alpa Irrigation District in these conversations to come up with a plan that would work for both parties. As I believe the gentleman earlier, David, was mentioning, they've made an offer as to indemnification agreements, a general fund. I have to say on other projects I've worked with in this type of situation, that has not been common. Those types of concessions are not typical in these types of projects. In most of these types of projects, a crossing agreement is routine, often free, no payments are associated with them. So I would say from what I've seen, it has been a fair process.
Okay, Adam, you want to answer some questions? Or,
To ask her a question on what she said. You said that the easement was not necessary, as in you could still go under without the easement, or you're not gonna have to go under?
So based on our review of the title to date and the searches that we've conducted, we do not believe that the Alpine Irrigation District has a fee interest, so they don't own the land. The easement would come from the landowner. And we haven't seen anything on record that shows they actually have an interest in the land. So they may very well have an easement, but if it is, it's not a recorded easement. Given that there's nothing on the record, there really wouldn't be anything that would come from them that would give Samsung the right to develop, which is why they're asking just for something that would recognize that they're crossing the canal, but not necessarily give them the right. The right would come from the county across the roadway.
Okay.
And that's whether it's above or below ground.
Okay, so just want to kind of address some of the questions that were asked just now and some of the comments that were raised by Bruce. So as far as fairness, we've been trying to coordinate with the Alpine Irrigation District as late as fall of last year on numerous occasions, both by phone, email, and even in-person meetings. We did attend one of their board meetings, but we've kind of been turned down at every corner to even attempt to have a fruitful discussion about the project. We've offered a very generous compensation package that outlined all the ways in which we intend to mitigate their concerns. One of the more important parts of that compensation package was putting together an indemnification agreement. Samsung would cover the legal costs for preparation of that indemnification agreement so that we would be held liable for any damages during construction of the project. And then to speak about the roads and bridges, we had mentioned that as part of the mitigation plan, we will establish a general fund that will cover any improvements that are needed prior to construction, because we do understand that the unmaintained roads may not be at the level of service required for deliveries. And we will document the current condition of the roads and make sure that everything is repaired back to its pre-project condition at a minimum.
Adam, can I interrupt just a second? Sure. Before we get too far and I forget? By indemnification, are you including, let's say, I don't know, heavy equipment slides into the bank and dumps a bunch of dirt in the water? Because it's an open system, it's not piped. Does that include cleaning that up and supplying water if something happens in the meantime?
Well, it's my understanding that it would cover something like that, but unfortunately, we have not been able to have those discussions with the Alpine Irrigation District. We've offered on numerous occasions to have those discussions and have them prepared by an attorney, and then it can be reviewed by their attorney, and we would cover those attorney fees. So we unfortunately have not really been able to get into the nitty-gritty details of what the indemnification agreement would cover, but we would be sure to cover instances such as that.
Okay, so that goes to my point of fairness and to make sure that the agreement lasts. And I obviously can't force you guys to talk to each other, but would it be prudent to agree to talk? And is that you? You're from Alpha, the Alpha guy, right? Okay. So would it be prudent to ask you guys to talk to each other and see if you can, well, you can first agree to talk, and then second, come back to us and say we've agreed or not agreed on this, because we're kind of being asked here, the way I see it, to approve a project where there might be an indemnification agreement that nobody's agreed to.
Understood. And again, as I mentioned, we've tried on numerous occasions, and I mean...
But both are here,
sure.
So...
well, Bruce can speak to his position, but he has mentioned to us that he will not consider any such agreement until after the SUP has been approved. So if we were to get SUP approval, he's expressed at least a willingness to come to the table and speak to us about the indemnification agreement, but to date, there's been no willingness to discuss the indemnification agreement.
Mr. Chair, I might recommend that we continue this
Well,
to
we need to
to a
finish.
date
the pub-
certain, so
we
I'm
need-
just throwing that out there
Yeah,
right now.
I think you're right, but I think we just need to finish everybody's testimony.
Yeah.
And
So, as far as, we've been privy to what Adam's talking about through this whole time, this whole process. In fact, all the way back in PRC, I told Adam to talk to Bruce, regarding this, and we've been trying to work around this issue, and we've heard opinions, legal opinions and otherwise. So, as far as continuing this matter, I don't see that being fruitful. Just because we said it doesn't make anybody else make a different decision. And as Bruce had suggested, we should respect their decision not to do this. On the other hand, we are a land of laws and we follow our policies and procedures. So just because one board wants to deny a project doesn't mean that we have a right to. So that's staff's opinion of the circumstances regarding this. As we've done before, we've negotiated a lot of cases, and a lot of cases do get negotiated before they become before you, but this is a little bit bigger project with a little bit larger process, and it's between two big boys here. So as far as the county, I don't see us playing a role in getting in the middle of it.
Well, do we have an issue with messing up the process and not doing the notification correctly?
We did notify properly and according to our standards. We circulated it through OPR. We've given the irrigation district and their council, and as we stated at our last meeting, we take comments all the way through the end of the appeal process. So there's no, well, you didn't get notified, well, the 30 days or the 45 days or the 60 days or after an appeal, 90 days that you've been in process. We've entertained all comments, so there's nothing new. But as far as you brought up environmental justice and the fairness of the process, the process is outlined per CEQA. And it does require us to notify OPR and those agencies within the state. It's rare that irrigation districts get notified. As far as we've personally given the documents to the irrigation district and their attorney, and I'll have Hector come up in a little bit and discuss as far as the concern about the any potential inadvertencies in the CEQA record and what the meaning of those are. But as far as fairness, it cuts both ways, you know. So I think the applicants put in a pretty concerted effort here to make that. And if we are, again, Alpa's a mile away from this project, so as far as the citizens of Alpa, I personally have gone out there quite a few times myself to do outreach. You may not always, like Bruce was saying, you may not always get those people who would sometimes attend those meetings to actually attend. So Bruce speaks for a large group of people here, being the manager of all these groups. And I mean, that's where the opportunity to talk is. And it's been out there, so.
All due respect, though, we've gone to, in similar situations where two parties couldn't agree, we've asked them to go away and try. So what you're telling me is one side can just run the clock out and say, we don't want to talk. Is that what you're saying?
Or they can.
And that's justified?
Or they can use the process to delay the.
Well, I don't see any precedent for that.
Or we could say here, like we've done before, that
You know,
Bruce.
I don't want to stop you, but we need to finish the public comment, okay? And then we'll come back. Hold that thought.
Two thoughts, okay.
Hold it.
Well,
Okay. So
Just wanna
finish,
address,
Adam. Go ahead.
Two more comments, thank you.
Yeah.
So in terms of the agricultural land, so we've been working with these landowners for quite some time. The land has been vacant for a while. And as the private landowners, they made the determination that this solar project is more beneficial to them than any potential agricultural use. The land has not been productive for quite some time. And then also to the point, or to the question of why Alpog? Why did Samsung target Alpog? Samsung did not target Alpog. Samsung goes through a very long interconnection process. And so it's really the electrical grid and the substation out there that drives the site selection of the project. That is why there's so many other solar projects in the region, is because of the existing electrical infrastructure that is available. So it's not as if, you know, Samsung is looking for disadvantaged communities to go develop. Ultimately, we need a substation to connect to, preferably one that is nearby, so we don't have to run electrical lines all throughout, you know, the region. Also, we do need to have land that is available for, you know, a fairly large solar project. So typically, that's going to be vacant agricultural land. That's just generally the most suitable land for solar development. And also because it's flat, doesn't require a lot of grading, changing the existing drainage pattern. So ultimately, this is an ideal site for solar development, not just because of how flat it is and how much acreage is available, but primarily because of its proximity to an existing substation. So, so those are my comments. So.
Thank you. So if there's no other comments, any new information, I'm going to close the public comment and turn it over to the commission.
Yeah, no, excuse me, Mr. Whitlatch. We did get a email from Bruce's attorney, and it did come in late at 10 o'clock today, but just so I am willing to follow what I say, we do accept comments at all times. So if you want to go open the attachment, is there an attachment?
Already, it's up.
This is the attachment?
That's
I
the
couldn't
email.
open it on my phone.
That's the email that, I didn't have it, yeah.
So this is the same email that's in the record from 6/22/2020 at 2:16.
If I may, I believe that that email was just a forwarding of an email that has sent previously with the
Yes.
letter.
So-
The county's already responded to all the comments to that letter.
Right.
So there's nothing new into the record.
That's perfect, because after you're done, I'd like Mr. Garrett to come up and give the same answer to this planning commission as he responded to this email previously. But go ahead.
And before Hector comes up and talks about CEQA, I'd just like to say that as far as when we're talking about a couple of comments about agriculture, the locations of these solar projects are tied to where the transmission lines are and the substations. That's why there's three main lines coming through here. One, PG&E, which goes to the west, and that's where they're going into that substation there, tying into that. The other, where we see a lot, is over by Ducor and the southeast part of the valley. You see a lot there. There's another main line that's through the center of that, and that's the Rector substation. And the reason you don't see that is because that is where the prime agricultural land is, and that's where it's more of a challenge. These are locating to areas that the agriculture, or what we would consider consistently be calling non-prime, to a lesser degree than the prime farmland, which is in the center of the valley. So, and also talking about jobs, the previous jobs that were created for the projects down the Alpaw area. We worked with Proteus in a training program, and they've trained up many students that have graduated and gone on to work in those projects. I believe there are over 1,000 that have gone through that system, and they're working in not just Tulare County, but as well as Kings and other places. And that project started with one of the first developments there, where the developer actually brought in equipment that they were planning to install, donated it to the system, or to the Proteus, and they started this green energy training program that's been very successful over the last probably 6 or 7 years. So.
I'm going to stick with closing the public comment. I can open it up again if I want, but Hector is part of our staff, correct?
Well,
I need to make an announcement really quick, not to do with the project, but I was informed. Security, I guess, says that there's a black BMW outside with the trunk left open.
Okay.
So as far as
But I'm anxious to hear what my fellow commissioners have to say.
I
and
understand that.
I'll answer, allow him to speak.
I understand, but I think Bruce would like to make one more comment, and I'd like to hear from the applicant one more time in regards to if there is a motion to continue.
So I want to hear what you have to say, Bruce, but my fellow commissioners have a lot of comments, and go ahead and make it, but this is where the rubber hits the highway here, so you may get what you want, so.
Okay, I appreciate the second stab here. I do have to go to Board of Directors meeting at 1 o'clock an hour.
Oh, okay.
So, I really appreciate you listening to our comments. My original ask has to do with the CEQA document. You know, we're pretty sophisticated when it comes to CEQA. CEQA is not a moving document till the end. I give up certain legal rights after today, okay? So I want it on the record that our district wants the CEQA document reissued with all the corrections so that all the public entities can have their input into it, because this is a far-reaching project where it changes ag land to industrial land. All the pieces need to be in place. Maria, I'm not saying that we're going to stonewall anything, but unfortunately, I answer to 5 directors. They're the ones that sign my paycheck, and they are not going to grant easements at this time. Okay? That's
So-
the roadblock.
So can you stay long enough to hear what we have to say when you,
Few minutes.
a few minutes?
Okay, so unfortunately, we're not anti-solar. You know, I get it. My personal opinion, I'm not a greenhouse guy. We're a nanosecond in geological time, okay? But this particular project's in the wrong place that affects our district, and our district is gonna protect itself at all costs, okay? Build it at Mooney's Grove. This particular project is in the wrong spot, and that's what you need to consider, along with severely disadvantaged lives matter.
So don't leave. I want you to hear what we have to say, okay? So,
Before you do continue, I would like the applicant to talk to the timing of this project, just so that will, you'll have full disclosure of the process and why it works the way it does.
okay.
So, as far as timing, what did you want me to speak to?
You were talking about the power purchase agreement and the timing of everything necessary to be in place.
So we're planning to execute our power purchase agreement at the end of next month, so the end of August. So it's to, you know, the project's benefit, to our benefit, to have these public hearings, you know, decided prior to that. So you know, we are also anticipating a potential appeal, you know, whatever the decision here may be, but a potential appeal to the Board of Supervisors. And take into account, it does take some time to get the proper notifications and to get our project on their agenda. We just want to be sure that, you know, we don't jeopardize our PPA opportunity by missing that execution date at the end of August.
Thank you, Adam. So
And then finally, Hector, if you come up,
I'm still closing the public comment.
you can, go ahead.
Yeah. How's that?
Environmental Planner Resource Management Agency for Tulare County. I will be brief. We did receive that request that the mitigated neg deck be recirculated per CEQA section 15073.5. But if you do the complete read of that section, there's also what we call B1, which states when you talk about recirculating a negative declaration based on substantial revision. And we did prepare an errata sheet. The document turned out to be exactly 100 pages long, and we found 11 inadvertencies. Now, just to give you the background of the inadvertency, what we do is we typically take the most recent comparable document, which was Glover Solar, which was not too far from Woodville, And we take all of the information from that and we try to be consistent in our addressing solar type projects. Even our citations to say, like something from Cal Fish and Wildlife or something to Caltrans or whomever it might be, DTSC, somebody, anybody. So that's what we did. And yeah, we did catch a few of those. But the operative language here is substantial, and at 15, and I can quote from the secret guidelines at that section 15073.5B1, it says a substantial revision of a negative deck shall mean a new avoidable significant impact is identified and mitigation measures or project revisions must be added in order to reduce the effect to insignificant, But as you continue reading the subsequent section, same thing, 15073.5, but at B4, actually subsection C says, recirculation is not required under the following circumstances. At B4 says, new information is added to the negative declaration which merely clarifies, amplifies, or makes insignificant modifications to the negative declaration. And all this is prior to adoption. So we're going through the process to hear if this document wants to be adopted. In your package, page 128, you have attachment number 1, Exhibit B. The errata has 11 areas we were able to identify. Now, with all due respect to the Alpa Irrigation District, they pointed out a couple of them that were correct. It's not near Woodville. It's not the nearest school. But to say that, how do we know it's even at Alpa? Well, I give to you that evidence that says, if you read the first page, page 1, it says the certain quadrant. It says APN numbers. So if you do your due diligence, you're going to see those APN numbers are, and the owners are within Alpa. You go to the next few pages, you have a vicinity map. You have a site map. You have, other maps that are showing roads just outside of Alpa. Our point being, it's proximate to Alpa. And all those maps, as you do the whole thing, you look at the whole document, the rule of completeness, and you look at it and you'll say, that's near Alpa. It's not near Woodville. They made a mistake. Yeah, we had an inadvertency, but does it so substantially change the body of the document? I don't agree. As a CEQA practitioner for 36 years, and knowing what, in my professional opinion, in my background, when you have an inadvertency saying it's Woodville, it turns out to be Alpa. Well, if you look at the rest of the document, you're going to see that it does show Alpa in other instances for the school, for the fire station, for the post office, for the library, whatever we talk about, Alpa, all over the place. So for them to say that it kind of throws you off because it's not exactly there all the time, forgive me. It is an inadvertency, but the rest of, again, 11 inadvertencies that we could identify of a 100-page document, in my opinion, is not bad. Is it so substantial that it's going to say, you're talking the distance to the Tulare Airport, okay, Mefford Field is about 20-some miles away. You mentioned other airfields that may be nearby. Well, CEQA doesn't address that. Other airfields within, nearby is defined as 2 miles or less. Nearby is defined as those that fall within like an Airport Land Use Commission plan. So they're not, Also, if you look at the use, it doesn't have very high elevations. Things are not going to see, not just at the highest 35 feet because that's what the zoning ordinance allows. So is it in the flight path? Commissioner Whitlatch, member of the Airport Land Use Commission, is that going to be so distractive that it's going to do something negative to a nearby airfield or airport? It is not. So what I'm looking for is substantial evidence to show significance enough to recirculate, and I've not seen any. So in my opinion, we did, our best effort to identify in the errata, in the entire document, that this is the project of a whole, and we feel it doesn't merit recirculation.
Thank you, Hector. So I'm going to go to my fellow commissioners because Bruce has got an appointment. So Wayne, you had a comment?
So, Hector, what you're saying is close enough for government work.
I take great pride in my secret commissioner, Millie, so I take that very seriously as far as the ability to get the best information that I can out there. And I will make changes to it if merited, show me, because I've shown you in this whole document, here's my proof, here's my proof, here's my proof. And my belief is that it accurately reflects that its proximity to Alpa.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maria?
Yeah. So, I'm making general comments, but also addressing to Bruce and to, now that I remembered your name, it takes me a while to get people's names, but to Bruce and to the gentleman from Samsung, is whatever the history of the failure to dialogue, that I think needs to change. Because, and I'm going to have a recommendation at the end of this, and obviously I can't force you to talk, but if you don't, wherever that failure to talk lies, you may, either one of you, not be satisfied with the outcome. I mean, I want to see people working. I want to see a solar project. I want to see it done in the right way. But to dig in heels, whoever's digging in, that's not good dialogue. So this might be an opportune time, Bruce, and you can probably see where my recommendation is going to go, but this might be an opportune time to tell your board that a decision is going to be made. And if you want to have the best possible decision, it behooves you all to get together and talk. Because there's, I think, no 100% right way here, but to get the best possible decision out of whatever's going to happen. Because if we decide yes, somebody's not going to like it. If we decide no, somebody's not going to like it. To protect whatever that decision is down the road for everybody, so you can know what the rules of the game are going forward, it is in your best interest to talk to each other. It's in your best interest to come to some kind of an agreement. Right now, I am very uncomfortable with the idea of voting on something that I don't know what the rules are, but I'm going to have to make some kind of a recommendation or a vote. I don't know what the project is other than there's a solar project, and I don't know what do you call it, the indemnification agreement is, because there isn't one. So if you don't talk to each other, you may not have one. And my recommendation, and I understand the timelines, is that we postpone this to the next meeting. So that means you guys have to talk quickly.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I thought I made that recommendation earlier.
Well, we can still discuss it, but I'm just saying, is that a motion?
It will be, but I need to explain really
Okay,
quickly
go
the
ahead.
rest. And the reason for that is, and I understand timelines, but the next meeting is 2 weeks out, so 14 and 8 is 22 days, it's July 22nd. The next Board of Supervisors meeting after that will, 7 days after that. So if you guys talk to each other, you can come to a best case scenario for the both of you. It's not going to be 100% what you want and 100% what they want. But if you don't talk to each other, regardless of the decision, there's probably going to be fights and litigation down the road. That's my guess, because I work in a different field, but I've seen this kind of stuff before. So I'm hoping that if we give you these 2 weeks, and that will be my motion, that if we give you these 2 weeks, we can mitigate that and you guys can get best case scenario out of this as it can be. So my motion is going to be that we postpone to a date certain next meeting.
Okay.
Could I ask you to open the public hearing? Because I don't want to waste time either. So if both parties come up and say there's no point to your suggestion, would you be satisfied and
If they say there's no point, and then we'll make a decision.
All right. Good.
And open the public hearing, public comments. So would both parties please come up, Samson and?
Well, I'll say the time, I have to go. I can't make that decision, my board has to make that.
Okay. That was the answer we needed, so.
And we have to respect that, they're governing board.
Through
trying
the
our
chair,
best to
through
come
the,
to a conclusion, so.
well, through the chair, with being respectful to your decision, as far as it is a no to do any of it.
Okay.
It was a no, but to be respectful to
Well, I
your
don't know
board.
that it's a no.
What's that?
I don't know that it's a no.
Decision a no to dialogue, Bruce, or is it a no to letting them
You can
know what
speak
the
in that
current
microphone,
situation
Bruce.
is?
My decision is not my decision to be made.
Mhm.
I work for my board, they're a public entity, just like you guys are. They're the ones that make the decision, okay? So I need the opportunity to have that dialogue with my board
Mhm.
of your recommendation.
So you have a meeting with them now at 1 o'clock, right?
Well, that's one of the boards, yeah.
Well, he's on 6 boards.
Okay, so
My meeting was with the Alpha Community Service District.
so the question would be then, to Aaron's point about not wasting anybody's time and getting a decision based on what we know, are you saying there's no chance that you will be able to talk to your board between now and the next 2 weeks and get together with Samsung
No, I
to
could
come up?
I could call a special meeting. I don't have a
Okay, so
problem.
are you personally willing to get that dialogue with them rolling and see whatever the decision will be?
Okay, this is solar panels. What's the sense of urgency here? It's been in development for 2 years. I've had dialogue with them for 2 years.
The issue is before us now. That's why we are asked to come to a decision. And so, Aaron?
Well, I mean, again, dialogues occurred for 2 years, and it's not going anywhere. I would just like to reiterate, staff has negotiated between many parties many times, and in some situations, you just have to go for the decision and let the parties deal with it afterwards. But I do appreciate what you're saying. It's just, we've been privy to the back and forth for the last 2 years, but go ahead.
I'll speak for myself, Aaron.
Mhm.
I can call a special meeting. I don't have a problem with that. I'll pass along to them. We're not that unsophisticated.
Mhm.
And
Small town too, so I get it.
yeah, but it's not a decision, again, that I can make as a manager.
We just want to make
This
sure
is
that
a
we don't.
This is a policy decision, and a policy decision need to be made by boards. And
But you can communicate what's at stake, what we talked about today.
Excuse me?
But you can communicate what's at stake, what we talked about today?
In a public forum, I can't do a serial meeting. I'll be in violation of the Brown Act. I have to call meetings just like this.
There are
You know that.
emergency meetings you can call and be on top of the Brown Act.
We'll let Bruce handle that. We don't want him to go to jail, so.
No.
Ankle monitors.
Okay,
well,
thank you for your time.
We're not through, so, you can go, but we're not through, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
I'll call you and find out what.
And Adam, please come up, and we understand the urgency because you don't want to miss your contract.
Sure.
But when we make a decision, then it really slows it down. So if it's a matter of just going to our next meeting,
Sure.
you may get what you want and you may not, but that critical August date is,
Mhm. Well, I will tell you this. So as far as the August date, we had no intention of waiting this long to come before the Planning Commission. We intended to submit our SUP applications, March, April of this year. And so we could get through the process, or actually, yeah, earlier this year is when we were planning to do it. But we figured it would be in both our interest and the irrigation districts to try to get these issues resolved prior to coming to the Planning Commission. Because as your concerns are absolutely valid. We were trying to get things written down and agreed upon prior to coming here so these things could be solved. Now, if we delay it another 2 weeks, I don't see it really progressing any further. The irrigation district has already held several board meetings discussing our proposals, our compensation packs, and we were offering very generous financial compensation for the easements. Now, as we've explained, these easements are not necessarily required for the project, but we want to be responsible developers, a good neighbor. I mean, we're not looking to take advantage of the irrigation district. We want to develop a partnership to where it's a mutual benefit for the life of the project. There are several ways that we believe that the irrigation district can benefit from this project, not just from the financial compensation of the easements, but also the improvements to the local roads and potential bridge replacement. So it's, we've kind of been stuck in this place for the last 6-7 months, and I don't see how the next 2 weeks can really change the irrigation district's mind. And on top of that, if I may say, if we try to develop an indemnification agreement in the next 2 weeks, we're just kind of giving them all kinds of power to delay that process. And, it's already been delayed much further than we would like, so.
Yeah, I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that, and I'm looking at it from a pseudo-legal standpoint. Again, this is not legal advice because I'm not an attorney, et cetera, et cetera. I do arbitrations, among other things. But one of the things that having this on the record in an official forum might do is to say they've had this opportunity, they cannot now say that they didn't. So if we ask for 2 weeks of a good faith negotiation period, you may still get what you want. They may not get what they want, or they may get what they want. It depends. But if you don't talk to each other, now that we've asked you, because I still feel uncomfortable making a one-sided decision, my result might still be the same. But if you are given this final, like a red A versus a blue A, or a red F versus a blue F, and I don't know, that was a thing to my elementary school. This is kind of like the last fair chance to do it right. And yes, COVID came in between. So there's not much that staff maybe could have done about that. We were on limited meetings, structured down activities, et cetera. 2 weeks is not, in my opinion, a huge ask. Because on the downside, if you don't get some sort of cooperation, or you don't have given the opportunity to cooperate, in a final, they have maybe more standing afterwards to say stuff.
Understood.
So just consider that. If you're willing to talk and they're not, you still may get what you want.
Yeah, and we did attend one of their board meetings earlier this year prior to the COVID-19 shutdown. We presented the compensation package, and again, we went through the indemnification agreement, all the various ways that we can address their concerns. And I presented to them, showed it to them, and we got no response from them. They basically said, thank you, but no thanks. We aren't considering, they've held the position that they are not going to come to the table to talk to us until after the SUP has been approved, if it is approved. And I mean, we're not going to walk away, if it is approved, we're not going to walk away from the district and say, you lost your chance. I mean, we still want to be the responsible developer. And ultimately, it makes the development process easier for us if we have their consent to cross their canals. Now, do we need it? Not necessarily. We don't need it, but it is to our benefit to have it. And in order to get it, we need to negotiate with them. And so those negotiations can take place after the hearing, and we can have more time instead of 2 weeks to kind of develop the terms and conditions. So I think, 2 weeks to put these things together when the district has yet to even talk to us about this, I think is wishful thinking. I mean, I appreciate it that, and you're concerned about this, and I want to do it the way you suggested. I don't have any faith in the irrigation district coming to the table based on the last, 10 months of discussions with them.
Now it's
Maria, I
just
think
one last thought.
you're saying the same thing over and over
No.
and over again, and we're giving advice.
No, go ahead.
I'm uncomfortable with the advice, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we don't know.
Through the chair, as far as our responsibilities on this discretionary board, I mean, we look at the general plan, the zoning code, and CEQA. And we're a little bit into the weeds on potential conditions of approval that we would not typically make. And you're right, we have used this dais to make these negotiations happen, but mostly in cases where it's about the conditions of approval, whether we're going to add to it or not. But now you're into easements that we have in the record that may or may not exist, and whether they should be indemnified against potential easements that do not exist. So, I appreciate especially the politics and nature of dealing with the Alpala Irrigation District, but as far as the rule of law, again, general plan, zoning code, CEQA. So, as far as you've heard from our own staff, and The Alpine Irrigation District has been, I mean, they might claim there's some errors in the environmental document, but they've been involved all the way since the pre-consultation, and most of the comments you got from the Alpine Irrigation District were not to the CEQA document. They were to the pre-project consultation. So they've been aware of this project for a long time. And again, everything I think we've shown so far evidentiary-wise was this project fits like so many other solar projects with the general plan, the board resolutions that allow solar to be compatible to ag, and definitely with the Williamson Act. And it is allowed in this zone with a use permit. I mean, that's kind of the end of the thought to Mr. Whitlatch's point.
If I just say just one more thing, and that's why we wanted to include our response to comments in the staff report, so it is in the record that we are showing a willingness to do all of these additional measures outside the CEQA document and the COAs. So just want to make note of that. Thank you.
So I will close the
Let's get to a vote.
public, I'm so confused, I don't know where I am. The public comment and move along to the, well, and you made a motion, so do we have to do anything about that motion?
I'm going to withdraw it.
Okay, it's been withdrawn, so we'll go to David, staff recommendation.
Hello again. Our recommendation is in two motions. One, to adopt the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring reporting program for special use permit number PSP 19-083 as being in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act and the state CEQA guidelines for the implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act of 1970. And motion to approve special use permit number PSP 19-083 and adopt the resolution establishing findings and conditions of approval for the project.
So do I have a motion from any of my fellow commissioners?
I'll make a motion.
The first motion?
Read it again, or what? We'll just, as David has stated,
Is it it was on our screen, to adopt?
to adopt the special use permit PSP 19-083,
The first motion will be for the,
approve the adopted mitigated negative deck.
correct.
Mitigated monitoring reporting program for special use permit PSP 19-083 as being in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and the state CEQA guidelines for the implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act of 1970. And
we've got, that's the first motion. Do I have a second, please?
He's got to press a button.
Let's see, where is it? Okay. We have
I'll second.
Okay. Go ahead and vote, please. Looks like the motion was carried. Now to the second motion.
second motion is to approve special use permit PSP 19-083 and adopt the resolution establishing findings and conditions of approval for the project.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second again.
Okay, vote. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. You know, I don't get paid enough for this job. I want a pay raise.
Lunch, huh?
Eat lunch, so. Well, let's go to the director's report. Some happy news, huh?
Heard you with not having a long director's report.
Oh, no, I like hearing what you have to say.
As you've seen, the ACFP is moving along. Per your request, the full presentation was given to you. We can come back later as far as the annual report and some of those numbers you were talking about you might want to see, so we can bring that back to you. VMT is motoring right along, and did we make the agenda this time, Velma, for next time with the VMT? Did we notice that for the next hearing? No, not yet? No, okay.
It'll be August 12th.
August 12th. August 12th, you will hear the VMT report. We get better and better feedback from Caltrans and TCAG all the time on ours. From what I understand, we are way out ahead of the cities and TCAG. So we appreciate their comments. And then, thank you, Mr. Washam. Did you go? I'm going to cut out, so you can go for it. Go.
I was just going to say one thing, that the board yesterday, we lifted the moratorium on Williamson Act contracts. So we're back accepting contracts and putting more land back in Williamson Act. So that's something that's been about a decade out, and now we're back in it.
Thank you, Mike. And Mike did give a wonderful presentation yesterday to make that happen. So,
Is that your boss? Is that why you had to say that? Or?
well, Mr. Washam gave a wonderful presentation. My boss gave a wonderful presentation yesterday. So yeah, no, and it's heavily justified and a long time coming. We're actually showing more tax revenue now for the way they restructured the taxing of individuals in the Williamson Act. So we get they get less of a break, and it goes directly to our general fund. So we get the benefit of the break. Whereas subvention we weren't getting from the state, and so that's why we decided not to do any new contracts. But you know, such big projects such as Yokel Ranch weren't able to avail themselves to go back in after they came out. So this will give them the opportunity, and we've had the other deals that people have been talking about with large acreage for farming purposes, where people might have wanted to get out for development purposes, so this will allow them to go back in. As far as other initiatives moving forward, we're still trying to work through the STR ordinance and find out where that lands. And then Mr. Washam was also in front of the board a couple weeks back on noise affixed to our social host ordinance because of the complaints about all the party barns, to be able to actually enforce against them and get, because we don't have a noise ordinance in this county, be able to enforce those issues or concerns.
But don't we have don't we always say you can only have a certain amount of sound?
Well, we have a general plan policy for 65
Decibels, yeah.
decibels, but it's really in relationship to what one could expect based on the use itself, the land use itself. So as far as a development standard or an ordinance, it is not. It's more of a policy. But this would allow, this is actually was created by Visalia, and the sheriff got on board to stop the underage drinking, but it was broad enough to enforce against some of the party noises. So we're going to use that vehicle to give some teeth through the citation powers of the sheriff and our own building officials to be able to issue those. Outside of that, you know, we're just kind of streaming right along with other projects coming through. So, you know, I wouldn't want to hold you guys up any more than I'm holding myself up from reviewing them. So that's all I got. Did you have anything else to add, Hector Johnson?
I'll make this very quick. Sorry on that. So this summer we do have a lot of projects going. I think over $20 million worth of projects. Right now speaking of Alpha, which is why I wanted to bring it up, we are doing, as part of our farm to market road repair project, we are improving the road between County Line on Avenue 54. I think it's Center Street. That's the name of that corridor in the community, up to Avenue 56. But yeah, that in District 2, Board District 2, because it's the Old Lake Basin, the soil there's, since it's the Old Lake Basin, there are a lot of expensive clays there. So the roads that were designed way back when, they're not, I guess, suitable. So then they do tend to like crack, and I'm sure out there's a lot of potholes. So really, with limited funding, there's really no long-term solution. They would really have to be gutted and reconstructed, and that would be just kind of a
and inside into districts too. So we are aware that the district, the roads are in pretty bad shape, and we do the best we can with the limited funds we have to repair those roads.
How about that road on the east side of Alpa that goes out to the solar project? That's not disaster.
Repetitive.
If I say it enough, maybe it'll happen. It's like the fence ordinance.
And those things will, I mean, the best thing we can do is I'll just talk to the staff, and then, because every year around March, April, every year, we develop the County Transportation Improvement Program, which is pretty much a set of projects we plan on working on in the new fiscal year. So we work closely with staff, our board, and we come up with these projects. So yeah, if these things that I do bring back to the team, and we do put it on the list, and we evaluate that every year.
Because that fellow from Alpa, the manager, he wasn't kidding when he said he lost a pickup in one of them, I believe.
Yeah, the soil, if it gets wet at all, it's really, like sticky clay, so, I mean, that's crazy, but I wouldn't doubt it, And the other thing too is, speaking of, I do feel for Samsung a bit today in terms of the communication with irrigation districts. I know personally as a project engineer, like when we're working on overlay projects, sidewalk projects, you name it, working with public utility districts, CSDs, PUDs, like irrigation districts, it is sometimes challenging to get a response from them. Take, for example, one of our projects, and I'm not going to point to any one district, but we've been reaching out to them since October of 2019. And typically when we do projects, we ask them for as-built or what they have out there, so that when we do projects, we can work around them or find a way to be good neighbors, because we don't want to bury their manholes, if they have any. But just an example, we've been reaching out to them since October 2019. It's been, like 8 months now, no response. Mail, email, call. When we do call, it's the clerks. The clerks, they don't know. They're not the ones making the decision. They just delegate to their board. So it is challenging. So I do feel for Samsung, but I'm not in any way, shape, or form like, I don't make that call on whether I support the project or not. But it is challenging. I do feel for them that it is challenging to get a response sometimes. So.
Well, this is going to be for lawyers, because you read
Correct.
that book, King of California, and a couple other about water rights, where canals have gone,
Yeah, it's challenging.
Who has
and
an easement, who doesn't, who owns the land, so.
Right, and it's challenging because I know for our projects, for grant-funded projects, we're on timeline. And it's tricky, like for safety projects, we have 3 years to get it out. Because it's supposed to be immediate, we address safety concerns immediately, but when we run into these issues, then it really bottlenecks the project. Certain funds are more discretionary, we have time to use them, so we don't push as hard, but certain funding sources, it's a really tight window. So, again, currently right now, it's always been a challenge for the county, so again, just seeing something today kind of just made me think about our own projects. But
And I know the legal description, this is just a comment for the county in general, like in Goshen, you'll have up to 3 different legal descriptions, and so you'll have to hire a surveyor to go back to the oldest one to find out where is the beginning point. So if it's happened in Goshen, it's...
Where that tree is at,
Yeah, where is
yeah,
that?
exactly, yeah. It's a challenge all around, but I just wanted to make that comment.
Go back to Mount Diablo, so...
Yep. Yeah, I had to start from the meridian there.
And to that point, that RIM project that's across the street from us, we're still negotiating that as far as the maintenance agreement for that easement.
Oh.
2 years later. So even getting it, even as a private party, kind of like the county trying to negotiate with 2 neighbors on who's going to pay what when, as a condition of approval, even doesn't drive people to move that much faster. So, and believe me, that's consumed a good quarter of my life. So, yeah, even trying to negotiate maintenance agreements between when you're the big bad county with 2 parties that should just be agreeing with you tomorrow, it's tough. And a lot of it comes down to surveying and some of the awkward agreements we've had historically.
But that's it, yeah, I know it's almost 1 o'clock already, so just wanted to make that statement. But next time we come back, hopefully it's not too long, I'd like to update you guys on, because right now we're pretty busy at Public Works. There's a lot of interesting projects we're working on, so I'd like to update you guys a little bit more next time, but that's all I wanted to say this time.
together. That'd be great.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause?
No, we're good.
We're good, huh? If not, meeting adjourned.
2 more weeks.
That was good.